a disability advocate, a Department of Corrections employee with expertise in classification, and a Division of Rehabilitation Services employee with experience in independent living. The board would function on an ad hoc basis upon the request of a circuit judge when the judge is reviewing a proposed placement. Mr. Speaker, that's a summarization of the bill. I urge its passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Gentleman at 36 Duckett Row is recognized.
If the gentleman would rise for a question.
Yes.
Now, it's my understanding that we have to pay a pretty high cost to incarcerate folks who've been determined to be, when courts have ordered them to be involuntarily hospitalized. Whereas if for the same person, if they weren't ordered by the court, they would be paid, their services would be paid for by Medicaid. Now, will this commission or these folks that are named in the bill to work on it, will they be able to perhaps review that and see if there's some way that we can cause our commitments to be civil as opposed to criminal?
That's not within the purview of the proposed legislation.
Thank you, sir.
Is there debate on the bill? If not, does the gentleman wish to close debate on the bill? If not, the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there are 100 ayes, 0 nays, and 0 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 702, relating to involuntary hospitalization, competency, and criminal responsibility of persons charged or convicted of certain crimes.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Having completed the calendar, the chair recognizes the gentleman at 29th Douglas Steele. For purposes of introductions.
Oh, thank you. I have a Senate message in front of me. And yeah, it was, okay, I didn't know where we were. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to introduce the staff of the Committee on Government Organization. And first, thank the Vice Chair for taking over for me when I had to take a week off this year, and thank all of you guys in here for bearing with me while I did that. I'd like to thank all the members of the committee for having a great year, and the minority leader as well as the minority chair, the gentleman from the second. We had a great year, and everyone in here was a big part of that. So thank you. I want to introduce our Chief Counsel, the Sith Lord, Jacqueline Schiffer. Our counsel, per diem counsel, Chris Etheridge. Our analyst and brother, Jared Page. Our per diem clerk, Brent Epling. And the one that holds us all together, our committee administrator, Denise Minton. Thank you so much.
Chair recognizes the lady from the 49th for purposes of introductions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As mentioned earlier by one of our colleagues, a group of people that we really want to recognize who have done an exemplary job this year with COVID precautions, making sure that our entire Capitol is safe. The people from the supply department that have helped us in all these ways, Eddie Belcher, over there. Kathy Hamilton, Cliff Harrison, and Daryl Anderson. Another group of people that have helped us immensely and have taken on a new delegate console system that just rolls off your lips, that we want to thank, and we really appreciate you adding extra support to the floor this year to help us.
Right now we're
with
taking
the
a look
system.
at the
Our
House of
tech
Delegates,
support
where they're
people,
thanking
Sam
staff and
Rowe,
employees
Manny Fernandez,
for their work
Brian
this session.
Downey.
We're going to go now to the Senate floor, where they're taking up a bill that would provide a procedure for West Virginia to select delegates to an Article 5 convention that is based, and they've moved on. So this is now Senate Bill 485.
The Senate refused to concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 485 and asked the House to recede therefrom.
Senior Senator from the Senate, or 17th, moves that the Senate refuse to concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 485 and requests the House recede therefrom. Is there discussion? Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. The House amendments are inconsistent with the purpose of the Senate bill. The purpose of the Senate bill was to create a new offense of possessing a firearm during the commission of certain felonies. The House amendment limits the statute's application to persons that are already prohibited from possessing a firearm. I move we refuse to concur.
Is there further discussion? If not, question for the Senate refused to concur in the House amendments to the Senate Bill 485 and requests the House to recede therefrom. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the motion adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
The House amended and passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 492, establishing program for bonding to reclaim abandoned wind and solar generation facilities.
Message be received. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate concur in the House amendment to Senate Bill 492.
The senior senator from the 17th moves the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 492. Is there discussion? Senior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. The House amendment adds a requirement that a decommissioning plan be certified by a qualified independent licensed professional engineer and meet DEP standards and technical specifications. The plan is to include costs and salvage estimates and consider local sitting conditions. These details were added for clarity. The amendment also provides an exemption from the bonding requirement, with some exemptions if a facility has already executed a decommissioning agreement with a qualified independent party, or if the facility was granted a sitting certificate by the PSC. The amendment modifies the nameplate generation capacity for exempt facilities from 1/2 megawatt to 1 megawatt and adds a definition of the term bond for flexibility. DEP is also authorized to create model agreements under the amendment. Owners with a prior decommissioning agreement must submit a copy of the agreement to the DEP only for review and comment. A bond assessed by the DEP is based upon the total distributed acreage less salvage value. The amount of the bond cannot exceed the projected cost of decommissioning less salvage value. The minimum bond amount of $150,000 is removed in the amendment. The amendment also requires an owner to comply with a new article before the PSC granting a sitting certificate. Furthermore, developers in compliance with the article are not subjected to any municipal, county, or local political subdivisions code, ordinances, rules, or regulations. The amendment also sets forth a deadline by which the DEP must act upon a bond application, and it increases appellate rights to the Environmental Quality Board for anyone aggrieved by a decision of the DEP regarding applications, plans, and bonds. I urge we concur.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question for the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 492. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the motion adopted. Question now is on passage of the bill as amended. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 29 yeas, 4 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those elected, and having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
The House amended and passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 660, providing for cooperation between law enforcement agencies and military authorities.
Message will be received. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate refuse to concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 660 and request the House to recede therefrom.
Senior Senator from the 17th moves that the Senate refuse to concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 660 and request the House to recede therefrom. Is there discussion? Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Simply, the House amendments are just inconsistent with the original purpose of the bill. I urge they recede.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is the Senate refuse to concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 660 and request the House to recede therefrom. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the motion adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
The House amended the Senate amendments as it relates to committee substitute for House Bill 2770, including home confinement officers and definition of law enforcement officers.
Message be received, Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate refuse the House amendment and ask the House to recede therefrom.
Senior Senator from the 17th moves that the Senate refuse to concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill House Bill 2770 and request the House recede therefrom. Is there discussion? Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate amendment cleaned up a number of fatal errors which the House amendment returns to the bill. I urge the House to recede.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is the Senate refuse to concur in the House amendments to House Bill 2770 and request the House to recede therefrom. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the motion adopted. Clerk will communicate the actions from the Senate to the House.
The House changed the effective date only as it relates to House Bill 3304, authorizing the Division of Corrections and Rehabilitation to establish a reentry and transitional housing program.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate concur in the House of Delegates change to the effective date of House Bill 3304, making it effective from passage.
All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage.
Senior Senator from the 17th moves the bill be made effective. All those in favor will... All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent and not voting. More than a majority present voting, having voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill effective from passage. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
We're now going to go to the House of Delegates, where members are discussing broadband. Delegate Daniel Linville is on the floor speaking now.
Comcast, CityNet, and others. They think that because we need this so desperately that they can write the legislation. Mr. Speaker, I submit to you that they cannot. We make law. We make law. They think that they can threaten us with stopping projects they have planned in order to ensure that we take no action describing how funds would be dispersed in a way which would be to the greatest benefit of our citizens. Mr. Speaker, I submit to you that bending in that way is exactly what got us in the position we're in. Mr. Speaker, I challenge a single member of this body to tell me any project without governmental support, like loan guarantees, grants, performance bond guarantees, and the like, which are under construction at this very moment, which serve an unserved or unfunded area of our state. I am unaware of any such projects, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this bill had industry input, from dealing with pole attachments, comparable use of utility rights-of-ways and easements, trenching permits, and so much more. This bill empowers the private sector and will leverage the federal support we're set to receive. Speaking of that support and of my previous question, what businessman or woman would privately build a network with $100 billion federally proposed in broadband infrastructure spending, $750 million in funding to our counties and municipalities that can be spent for broadband, $134 million dedicated from the American Rescue Act for broadband in West Virginia, and the $12+ billion available in the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund Round 2? Mr. Speaker, this bill empowers that, but why is it so important? 12 years ago, Frontier benefited from this legislature and a previous governor not acting to deal with around $100 million of federal money. Look where it got us. Mr. Speaker, my father taught me that the definition of intelligence is to learn from your mistakes. 12 years ago, our state made a mistake. Will we learn from it? The opportunity's never been greater. Mr. Speaker, there are no limits to the lengths that someone will go to protect a cash cow, a closed market. We saw that with companies paying employees in scrit. That currency was only good in company stores, and as such, workers were beholden to the company. They were robber barons. The argument from the industry was that open access hadn't been well defined in the amendments by Senator Plymel yesterday, and that amendment was largely House Bill 3302. Mr. Speaker, we're going to move to concur. We are, because we'll lose a good bill. But, Mr. Speaker, I will not back down. I will not quit. Last year, the Senate stripped our broadband legislation down to its bare bones, and we accepted it after they held the message until about this time. Mr. Speaker, we sent this bill over to the Senate on March the 5th. That's 40 days and 40 nights. Mr. Speaker, we've got a good bill, but it could have been better. As we return to appropriate additional dollars, I demand that we take an active role in the appropriation, oversight, and administration of these funds, utilizing the tenets of House Bill 3302 as our guide. Mr. Speaker, I will conclude my comments with a word of caution, and I will promise you this. If you're a bad actor, if you're not serving the people of the state of West Virginia, and if you take money and you don't get the job done, as the House Committee on Technology and Infrastructure has demonstrated this year, we'll invite you to appear under oath in front of the Committee on T&I, and if an invitation doesn't suit you, we will subpoena you. I hope that fixing the damn internet will be the priority we all claim it is, and I don't mean in a partisan fashion. Put in the work. Mr. Speaker, I move we concur.
The motion is that the House concur in the Senate amendments to committee substitute for House Bill 2002. Is there debate on the motion? If not, those in favor of the motion will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The question now before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, the question is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There are 99 ayes, 1 nay, and 0 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2002 relating to broadband.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Gentleman from the 16th.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we concur with the title amendment as well.
The House does not have a title amendment. The title amendment has been agreed to by the gentleman's motion. Next Senate message. Senate did apparently include an effective date of May 27th, 2021. Lady in the 49th.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I move the bill become effective May 27, 2021.
The question is that the bill be made effective May 27th, 2021. Those in favor of that motion will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there are 98 ayes and 2 nays. 2/3 of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill effective May 27th, 2021. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next Senate message.
The Senate has passed with amendment and a title amendment. Committee substitute for House Bill 2025 provide liquor, wine, and beer licensees with some new concepts developed during the state of emergency, utilizing new technology to provide greater freedom to operate in a safe and responsible manner.
The message will be received. The gentleman of the 29th, Douglas Steele.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of House Bill 2025 was to provide liquor, wine, and beer licensees with some concepts that were developed during the state of emergency, utilizing new technology to provide greater freedom to operate in a safe and responsible manner. There were several Senate amendments. First, the first Senate amendment added 2 sections of licensees to permit grocery stores and Class B licensees to engage in delivery with food to a person. This would have matched the House version, which only had Class A licensees and has similar fees for those deliveries and so forth. Those deliveries that are coming from a DoorDash or a Grubhub or something like that do not have a fee attached to a per driver fee, but are a blanket fee of $200 annually for those deliveries. The second Senate amendment makes addition to allow direct shipping to a resident of this state for non-intoxicating beer and liquor. For beer shipments, the direct shipper must meet certain requirements and pay an annual $250 fee to engage in direct shipping. Beer shipments must be sent to the brand's distributor, and the distributor must complete the delivery by offering an in-person pickup without charging an additional fee for the pickup. For liquor shipments, the direct shipper must meet certain requirements and pay a $250 annual fee for a license to ship liquor to adult residents of this state. The direct shipper must ship liquor to a retail liquor outlet, one of your pre-existing outlets, and the retail outlet may complete delivery to the person by arranging for in-person pickup. The retail liquor outlet may engage in a 10% markup fee. The third Senate amendment redefines the term close proximity when the term is used to define an available area not adjacent to a licensee's licensed premises, but that may be used when private outdoor dining or private outdoor street dining is otherwise permitted. The Senate amendment limits close proximity to an area within 150 feet of the licensee's licensed premise. The House version was 500 feet, so that was limited. The Senate amendment has added a section to allow retail liquor outlets to deliver liquor to a 21-year-old resident of this state with the delivery of food. The amendment will also allow a third-party delivery company, such as a DoorDash or other similar delivery company, for a $200 annual fee. Similarly, there's no additional charge for the drivers. The Fifth Amendment from the Senate added a new definition of areas that may sell and serve alcohol and food to an already established list. The Senate added a new definition for a private professional sports stadium, a private farmer's market, and a private multi-sport complex. The new definitions would create a new license for the areas in addition to retaining other new additions in the House version. The Senate amendment the Senate amendment also restored all the previously reduced fees for licensees and added a new subsection indicating that COVID hit hospitality particularly hard and lays out a mechanism to reduce fees. So the House, we went through and cut those fees dramatically. What the Senate did is raise the fees up to the original level and basically said for 2021, these fees are a third of the amount that they were. For 2022, they're 2/3 of the amount. And by 2023, fees will be returned to their original levels. Finally, the last Senate amendment modified the ages at which a person may sell, serve, or otherwise furnish alcohol from 18 years old to 16 years old, but only when that person is supervised by a person at least 21 years of age or older. This will help certain tourism-based industries create additional jobs in the economy for younger persons. The House version did not previously consider the change. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move the House concur with the Senate amendment with further amendment and title amendment.
The question before the House is the motion that the House concur in the Senate amendment with further amendment and title amendment. Is there debate on the motion? The gentleman, the 45th, Doug Martin, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the chairman yield?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. You mentioned that liquor stores would be able to deliver. You could have liquor delivered to your house.
Correct. It's got to be within the zone.
And they have to sell food with that, correct?
Yes, there is a food requirement. No, not on the liquor. Just
what? I was pretty sure that you said that there was food that had to be sold with the liquor.
Okay, what I'm being told, it is food, but it can be prepackaged food.
It can be prepackaged food?
Correct. That was changed.
Okay. Also, for the private farmers markets, would you be able to kind of expand on that, like how that works? I mean, it's a brand new license.
We got an outline we're going through in one moment.
I appreciate it.
The main purpose of that was for wine tastings, beer tastings, and fundraisers within a bounded area of the private farmers market.
Okay, so I can't just go have a farmers market and set up a bar and sell alcohol all day at
no,
the
it would be an
farmers market?
Correct. It would be an additional license that has different restrictions on it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman, the 30th, Doug Bates, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The gentleman yield.
Yes, sir.
Would a bag of pretzels or potato chips meet the requirements for prepackaged food?
I believe it would.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman, the 32nd, Doug Fast, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Obviously, I oppose the gentleman's motion. A lot of this bill remains fully intact. The Senate just basically closed any loopholes. If there were any places that you couldn't have alcohol or you couldn't sell alcohol, now you can. So it's a major, major deregulation. I've been here, this is my 7th season that I'm finishing up right now, 7th session. And this body has passed major alcohol bills. Year after year after year, this body, and I'm ashamed to say, this party has. You basically can take our party platform and hold it up and shoot holes through it with a shotgun. That's what's happened. And this is a booze bill. It's a booze bill on steroids. It establishes a fund. It creates a fund to establish a program to foster the development and growth of hard cider. Now you say hard cider, so what? Some fermented apples and peaches. But later on in the bill, cider is deemed a wine. And also later on in the bill, wine can have up to 24% alcohol. Under a mini distillery or micro distillery, it completely strikes out a subsection E, which had, for these mini distilleries, gallon limitations, like 50,000 gallons a year. That's completely struck out. So the way I read that, there are no limitations now for a mini or micro distillery. Are you going to call point of order? Oh, be my guest.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. I believe the gentleman's talking about the bill and not the amendment.
They're mixed together.
They are. The chair did look at the amendments in anticipation of our discussion here today. That the chair will rule the point of order is not well taken.
Thank you.
He has already described three things that are not correct in this amendment. He is speaking to the prior bill that's not even in this amendment.
Well, the gentleman will correct that, I'm sure, when you close.
Absolutely, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. One thing that is vital, and I can get up and speak to the bill too, but one thing that is vital in this amendment, it reduces the age to sell or serve alcohol from 18 to 16. I mean, my goodness, people, my goodness. A lot of 16-year-olds, even 18-year-olds are still in school, and it's my understanding if you want to get a job, you have to get a work permit from the school superintendent at that age. Private farmers markets now would allow the sale of alcohol and, as the gentleman just explained, tasting. That's a place, when I go to a farmer's market, see a lot of children. Moms and dads take their children, they go pick out some squash and some corn and tomatoes and things like that. Now you're going to have a wine tasting part of your farmer's market. My goodness, just unbelievable. I will, to avoid additional points of order, say a few more things if this hideous amendment passes, but I would certainly urge rejection.
The question is on the motion that the House concur in the Senate amendment and title amendment with further amendment and title amendment. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, the question is on that motion. Those in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed will say no. No. Chair is uncertain. Roll call is demanded. Is the demand sustained? Demand is sustained. The question is on the motion that the House concur in the Senate amendment and title amendment with further amendment and further title amendment. Those in favor of the motion will vote aye. Those opposed to the motion will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There are 60 ayes, 39 nays, and 1 member absent or not voting. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the motion adopted. The question now is on the passage of the bill. Is there debate on the bill? The gentleman the 13th, Doug Penson, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It has been a joy to serve in this body because we've done some really good things. Over the course of the last 60 days, we've worked together and we've accomplished some really good things. In my opinion, this bill is not one of those things. Now, we have picked up several votes just in the concurrence from the original version of the bill, and the reason for that is the bill has gotten worse. My friend from the 32nd tried to explain that in his comments, and I waited to speak because I do want to speak against the bill, not the amendment. The amendment just made the bill worse. This is a comprehensive overhaul of the laws surrounding the sale and distribution of alcohol in our state. 106 pages, a comprehensive overhaul. I want you to think about this bill, and with all due respect to those who want this bill, you can look into that yourself. I want you to think about this bill, and I want you to be honest with yourself. This bill is not about tourism. This bill is not about jobs. This bill is about alcohol. This bill is about liquor. It's a comprehensive overhaul, and with all due respect, within the 106 pages of this bill, there's probably some changes to law, some changes to restriction that you may not even be aware of. It's a heavy read. Now, I've looked at every one of these pages in preparation to stand this evening, and truth be told, I would have enjoyed today a whole lot more had I not been trying to prepare for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. There might be a concept, or maybe even a few concepts within this bill that you approve of or that you think is a good idea, and that's fine. However, 106 pages, the omnibus alcohol bill should not be passed because of one or two good concepts. If there is a concept or two that you approve of, let's pull those out. Let's give them standalone consideration. I would urge you to vote no on this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from the 37th, Doug Pushkin, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to rise today in support of this legislation, simply because those of you who know me know I got a lot in common with the gentleman from the 13th. I got a lot in common with the gentleman from the 32nd. The main thing is we don't drink. I don't drink. Haven't touched it in a little over 16 years. And I'm not going to start because the law was fixed. And the gentleman's correct, this is an overhaul of the alcohol laws in this state because they were much needed. I've been here for several sessions now and serving in judiciary. Every year we're looking at these different laws that are archaic. They're written for a different era. And in fact, it was written for like a good old boy system where we're referring to clubs as private clubs, and it's kind of all written based on a nod and a wink, based on fiction, really, because that's just not how the real world is. So I just wanted to rise and applaud the chairman of GovOrg for the work that was put into this bill. You want me to smile for the camera? Sorry. And I'll just say, if you don't like alcohol, you could be like me and don't drink it. But why don't we fix it for these bars and restaurants that have just had the hardest year that we've ever had in history for these small businesses? Let's give them something. And I guarantee you the people who don't drink, like me and like the gentleman from the 13th and the gentleman from the 32nd, we're not going to start drinking because of a bill, because the law was fixed. Once again, thanks again for fixing this law. Hope we can come back again and give the rest of the attention that it needs. Thanks.
The gentleman, the 46th, Doug Burkhammer, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I know most of us probably follow federal politics as well. And one of the biggest complaints that we all make is when they stack out this big bill and they pass it and they don't know what's in it. We all complain about it. They pass budget bills, we don't know where the money's going, special interest groups, all of those things are in those bills, And we all make that complaint all the time. But here we are doing the exact same thing. We've got so many different areas that we've stacked in here, and we're changing this and improving that and modifying this. And my question would be, what are we trying to fix? Because no one's been calling me with this issue. You know, I get a lot of calls, a lot of emails, and none of them are ever saying that our alcohol restrictions are too strict and I'm going out of business. The last time that I looked at the taxation of alcohol and liquor and what we were bringing in, it looked to be doing fairly successful. But here we are expanding something that didn't necessarily need expanded. So we're not fixing a problem. Now we're setting the path for the future, saying this is who we want to be. This is the direction that we want to go. And I'm not sure that's the direction I want to go. We have that famous saying, right? This is a place to live, work, and raise a family. Raise a family. This is what we want to do to raise a family? Sure doesn't help work either. So I have serious issues with it. If there were small problems and we needed to fix some things that were outdated, as the gentleman said, you know, there are markets that have changed, and I understand that. But to do this vast overhaul of a system that wasn't broken is beyond me, and I urge rejection. Thank you.
The gentleman, the 45th Delegate Martin, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the chairman yield for another question?
Absolutely, sir.
Thank you, sir. So for the license cost reduction.
Yes, sir.
If we would pass this bill, I know that licenses are renewed July 1st.
Correct.
So like for example, I'm a license holder.
Yes.
If this would pass, would I be paying a reduced fee July 1st this year?
It depends on how we work on this effective date, and I'll let you know in a minute.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mr.
If you're
Chairman.
asking if you need a Rule 49, you do.
Okay. Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to request a Rule 49. I was granted, or I asked once before, but the bill has changed, so I'd like to ask for it again.
Has the set of facts initially relayed to the chair by the gentleman changed in the bill?
Yes, sir.
Is the gentleman now a class of 5 or greater individuals?
I'm still at 5 people. I'm class of 5, yeah.
At exactly 5 people?
Exactly 5, sir.
The chair was corrected by the clerk on the rule earlier that the rule provides that for a class of 5 or greater individuals that the gentleman would be directed to vote. The chair understands the gentleman was excused from voting on the bill when it left the House, but the chair has been advised by the clerk that the correct application of the rule is a class of 5 or greater individuals. And if the
We're now going to go to the Senate, where they're taking up an abortion rights piece of legislation known as the Second Chance Act.
This is the called the Second Chance at Life Act. The Judiciary Committee amendment is a strike and insert amendment for the entire bill, and it amends 2 sections of the bill, a definition section and an informed consent section. It's all within Article 2L. Is that an L or an I? 2I or 2L of the Chapter 16, which is the Women's Right to Know Act. And so the strike and insert amendment and the bill addresses the question of informed consent in the context of the chemical abortion that is done with the drug mifepristone. So, in the definitions section, section 1, there are definitions of new terms. The term chemical abortion is defined. The term licensed medical professional is defined. There's a new definition of the term reasonable medical judgment. And then for other definitions of terms such as abortion, attempt to perform an abortion, there are cross-references, Mr. President, to other sections of the code. And then the bulk of this bill happens in Section 2 of the same article. And as I mentioned, it's essentially an informed consent bill. And what the bill addresses is when the two-drug process involving mifepristone is initiated, and then the completion of the process involves the administration of prostaglandin. When they occur separately, sometimes they're taken together, but when they occur separately, there are those who suggest that it may be possible to counteract or the effect of it before you take the second drug, or at least extend the pregnancy. Now, so that's what this bill addresses. It talks about informed consent, and what it says is, and I'm in subpart B there on the third page of the bill. It says, after the first drug in the two-drug process is dispensed in a mifepristone chemical abortion, the physician or agent of the physician shall provide written medical discharge instructions to the female, which shall include the following statement. It's in quotes. If you change your mind and decide to try to counteract the intended effects of a mifepristone chemical abortion, if the second pill has not been taken, then please consult your physician. 1, you might experience a complete abortion without ever taking misoprostol. Misoprostol is another name by which the prostaglandin is known. It's the second drug in the two-drug process. So 1, you might experience an abortion without ever taking it. 2, you might experience a missed abortion, which means the fetus is no longer viable, but the fetus did not leave your body. Or 3, it is possible that your pregnancy may continue. You should consult with your physician. So, and then the patient has to certify she's received the information and the consent. This is controversial. Laws similar to this have been passed in other states and have been enjoined, Mr. President, by federal courts. We have, in crafting this, tried to address some of the objections and problems that were cited by the court as bases for the injunction of the informed consent laws in other states which have adopted it. Mr. President, I will be happy to try to answer questions. Otherwise, I urge the adoption of the committee strike and insert amendment.
Is there discussion? Senior Senator from 17.
Would the Judiciary Chairman
from Morgan yield? Senator yields.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I tried to follow that. What was this specific change between the health and the judiciary?
Yeah, there's a good bit of change in the informed consent part of the bill.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, I've got it. I answered my own question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Further discussion. Senator from Cabell.
I'll move the previous question.
All those in favor of moving the previous question say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Previous question. Okay. Question for the Senate's adoption. Question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? No, we're on amendment. I lost track of it. The question for the Senate is, no, I'm not. Senator from Cabell.
Withdraw my motion.
It's accepted. Senator from Brooke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the previous question.
All those in favor of the previous question say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Question before the Senate is adoption of the amendment offered by the Committee on Judiciary. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Clerk will read the bill a third time.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2982 relating to the Second Chances at Life Act of 2021. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. In going over the strike and insert amendment a moment ago, I've really sort of covered the provisions of the bill. There is some controversy with the idea of giving a woman progesterone to try to counteract the chemical abortion. Was developed by a doctor named Delgado. He was not an obstetrician or a gynecologist, as I understand it and have read in the cases. And it's a controversial issue because there haven't been clinical trials and the process has not been approved by the Food and Drug Administration. But this bill does not permit or outlaw the process. That is left to a physician and a patient. But what this bill does try to do, and we've tried to do it as best we can, is to require some sort of written, informed consent that addresses the risks associated with the procedure. Be happy to try to answer questions. Otherwise, I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? Senator from Boone.
Thank you, Mr. President. The easiest thing for me to do is just not stand up and vote green. But that's not the best thing to do for women's safety. It's not only controversial, this is dangerous. The reason it's controversial and the reason that it's not a recommended FDA procedure is because during the studies, women that were involved that didn't take the second pill to expel the fetus from their uterus had terrible bleeding complications, had to be admitted to the hospital. So this bill, like many other bills that we see here this time of the year, is a bill that basically allows someone who's running that doesn't think this is the right thing to do, that the opponent can send out a card saying that your Senator Ron Stallings, voted against the second chance in life. Now, boy, what kind of guy would I be to vote against a second chance of life? Folks, this is dangerous. The science goes against it. The obstetrics gynecologist says this is a terrible bill. And that's all it is. It's just a bill that we can talk about how the Democrats are abortionist and against God and against guns. That's all this is. It says some suggest that it may be possible to counteract the intended effects of this befesterone. And that some, I'd have to say some quacks say that. And there's not enough protection in here. There's not anything in here that says you may bleed to death. The medical community stands against this. It's a patient safety issue. I know we have to take up a right to life bill every year. That's just what we have to do. And it's all political. God, guns, gays, and abortion. This is not safe for women. And I know that it's going to pass. And I know if I run again, it'll be used against me. Like I said, the easiest thing to do is just shut up and vote green. But I have the Hippocratic Oath that I have to adhere to. And folks, this does harm. I urge a no vote.
Further discussion. Senator from Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. The senator from Boone covered most of the issues that I was going to raise, but I just want to point out that this bill, with very similar language requiring the same very similar outcome, has been stopped in Tennessee and North Dakota, not bastions of Democratic politics. This isn't about whether you're pro-abortion or anti-abortion. This is about putting women's lives at risk. And I just want to read a couple of the findings from both courts. that the method promoted by the quacks that we're about to rely on is devoid of scientific or medical evidence that it works, that it misleads the patient, that it is an unethical obligation placed on doctors, and it breaches the standard of care. That's why if you read in here, there's immunity for doctors for doing this, because they know that they are going to end up causing injury and death, and they want them to be immune. And that's good for the doctors if we're going to force them to do it. But think about that. We had to give them immunity for injuring and killing women in West Virginia. Vote for it. I'll spend every penny I have to put out an advertisement that says exactly what this bill does. I'm a no vote.
Is there further discussion? Junior Senator from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I urge a no vote on this bill as well. To me, this bill isn't about abortion. The problem with this bill is if the legislature is forcing a physician to tell a patient something that is not supported by the evidence, something that's not supported by the medical science, something that's not supported by the standard of care. That's not our role here. We're not to intervene between the patient and their physician. I mean, for example, I personally believe, and it's backed up by the evidence according to the Children's Defense Fund, that the second leading cause of death among children is gun violence. Would you all support me if I wanted to put in the code that a physician had to tell a patient, a mother, a father, and their family to keep guns away and that gun violence can kill their children? Of course you wouldn't. I wouldn't either, because that's not what our role is. What doctors tell their patients is the standard of care. That's based upon their education, experience, and the medical science, the peer-reviewed literature. We have no role in that relationship. That's between them, the patient, and the doctor. We have no role in this bill. I urge a no vote. Thank you.
Further discussion? Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I can support this bill. In the initial form, I could not, but let's just talk in real life terms what happens now. Without this bill, if you have a female that goes to a physician and decides that they want to terminate the pregnancy, and they get this regimen that has been used for many, many years, what the first medication does, it causes the inside of the uterus to slough off. Now that's where the child has been implanted, and it's going to cause a horrible period, essentially. So, of course, they're going to bleed. You have to wait at least 24 hours or so because you have to let the lining continue to slough off. Now, the second medication is to help that uterus contract to help stop the bleeding. That's what goes on right now. Bleeding can occur right now, but overall, it's a fairly well-recognized means of terminating a pregnancy. That's what happens right now if we do nothing with the bill. Now, when that physician sits down with their patient, they're going to have to sit down and give them a very informed consent, as any physician should with any patient with any procedure. They're going to say, these are the risks, here are the benefits of why you would want to proceed with this, here is the risks that could occur, including bleeding, etc. Right now, without this bill, across the country, sometimes a female takes the first dose, and I have said this is similar in a situation where somebody perhaps tries to overdose, and as soon as they take the lethal concoction, they realize I don't really want to do this. What do? They would call their physician right now and say, I really feel like I've made a mistake. Is there anything I can do? And the physician can offer a high dose of progesterone. The first medication that was given that the patient had already taken was a progesterone blocker. That hormone helps hold the uterine lining intact. And when you block that hormone, the uterine lining sloughs off. Much similar physiology goes on with a female during her menstrual cycle on a monthly basis. This is just at higher doses. If a female today takes that first dose and decides, I really feel like I made a mistake, what can I do? The only thing you could potentially do is a high dose of progesterone to try to block that effect. Now, there will never be a study on this because you got to think about what you're doing. You would be doing a medical study encouraging people to terminate a life and then try to reverse it before you terminate a life. That will never be done. So you'll never have a study that shows how effective this is or not. So I don't feel the legislature should jump in the middle of a patient-physician relationship. However, all this bill does is it codifies what the physician is going to do anyways. The patient has already come to the physician, and the physician just says, if you change your mind, it may, not shall or can, or just it may be possible to avoid, cease, or even stop the intended effects of the chemical abortion with this other medication. That's it. There's no guarantees there. There's no promises. It just gives them a piece of information. Now, the vast, with or without the bill, whether it passes today or not, most individuals, I suspect, will have made up their mind. They'll take the 2 medications. They'll complete an abortion. Without the bill right now, there's going to be instances across the country where the first person, or where the person takes the first medication, decides it's not what they want to do, and this can happen regardless. To me, this bill just simply kind of codifies the informed consent process, and therefore I see no problem with the bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 27 yeas, 6 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk has a title amendment.
Senator Trump moved to amend the title of the bill.
Question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the action and send it to the House. Senate will be at ease.
We're now going to go back to the West Virginia House of Delegates, where lawmakers are debating House Bill 2025.
You know, the people that sponsor that beer tent, I'm sure, but it's just an easier path and an easier way, and we're putting a lot of responsibility on these younger people to check an ID, to ask for the ID, and to be strong enough to stand up to those people. If they say, me? You got to see an ID? I'm old enough. You know, it's bad enough for 19-year-olds and 21-year-olds to do it. But, you know, again, I'm looking at this, and I'm saying a state of emergency. It's almost like we are causing an emergency of our state if we allowed to do this. Okay? So all I want to say is just please think about.
Gentleman from 37th has raised a point of order.
Maybe I missed something. Is the gentleman still yielding? Or who are you talking to?
Gentleman 16th does have the floor. If there's no more questions,
you're right.
we'll turn off the gentleman's
And thank you for
microphone.
yielding. I just wanted to ask you about fairs and festivals, and thank you for yielding to that, because I really didn't consider fairs and festivals. So thank you.
The chair did give the gentleman from the 16th the floor, so the gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it. But you know, we're in a conundrum right now. It's tough. We want to kind of we want to change to the times instead of us keeping what we feel is right. You know, and we see this a lot in our society today. And I just think it's important that we pay attention to this bill and we look at what kind of stress and responsibility that we could be putting on 16-year-olds. That's all I'm saying. If they're old enough to drink, they're old enough to sell it, and that's cool. That's fine. That's the way it should be. But to go down to 16, I just think that's pushing the buttons a little bit, my opinion, and that's putting a lot of undue stress on some people. And that's, again, I just wanted to stand up again and just say, come on, let's think about it. We all have kids that have been 16 or that are 16 or that are younger. Do we want our daughters or sons doing this? And what if they oversell or do something to somebody? Is the parent responsible? Not sure. But our minds are responsible, and we allowed our children to work in that environment, and now they're responsible. So what are we going to do? We got a lot on our hearts and we got a lot on our minds. So let's just kind of consider this, and let's keep it to be, if you're old enough to drink it, you're old enough to sell it, and let's leave it there. And let's not dummy down this thing and go down to 16. Okay? That's all I'm asking. And I really appreciate your thoughts on that, and thank you very much.
The gentleman, the third, Doug Fluharty, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You can stay up. Would you like to yield for questions?
Absolutely. I'll yield to you anytime.
All right, thank you.
You got it.
You were going through some provisions of the bill. Have you actually read the bill?
Part of it, yes.
Part of it, okay.
Yes, sir.
Could you point me to the part where 16-year-olds are just allowed to sell alcohol willy-nilly?
Man, trust me, I do have trouble hearing on this. Say it again, please.
Okay. Could you point me to the provisions in this bill that allow for 16-year-olds to sell alcohol without any, in their own discretion, without any direction whatsoever from a supervisor?
No, they obviously they're employees, so they are going to have discretion, and they're going to have somebody in charge of them, just like I would at a restaurant or somebody else. And those people would be the ones responsible. But we're putting 16-year-olds in a position that's in my opinion, and my opinion only, can't speak for anybody else in here, that could be a little bit dangerous or difficult.
So you don't have the provision in front of you?
No, sir, I don't.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I do
not. Do you
not.
recall reading that?
I have read part of the bill, yes.
You have? Or did you just hear some people talk on the floor today and you just automatically think 16-year-olds are selling alcohol?
Both.
Okay. So you think that influenced your position a little bit today?
I'm sorry. Say it again.
You heard some testimony or some description of the bill on the floor, right? You were here listening? Okay.
Yeah, I agree. Yes.
And through the course of listening to those conversations, is that what put in your mind that 16-year-olds could just freely sell alcohol under this bill?
They can't freely sell it. They're employed by somebody.
Okay. And in the course of them selling alcohol,
yes,
don't they have to be supervised?
Yes, sir,
to
they
sell
do.
it?
Yes, they do.
Okay. So they have to have direct supervision by someone who is 21 or older.
Correct.
Okay. So do you still have the position that 16-year-olds are just selling alcohol under this bill?
I do.
Despite the fact the word clearly says that's not the case?
No, I do. I have an issue with 16-year-olds selling alcohol or tobacco products.
So does the state of West Virginia. That's why we're not allowing it under this bill.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for yielding the questions. Just very quickly, Mr. Speaker. You know, a lot of irony in some of the speeches going on here today. You know, I hear you guys get up and talk about freedom all the time and talk about capitalism and how you're pro-business. Well, let's talk about that for a second. If you don't want to drink, don't drink. I think a few of you in here could use one. Man, if you don't want to go to a place that sells alcohol, don't go to a place that sells alcohol. It's pretty simple. But this idea that 16-year-olds are going to be selling alcohol is simply not true. Read the bill. I can tell you when I worked at Kroger in high school.
Yes, gentleman, the 14th will state the point.
Move the previous question.
The gentleman must.
I have the floor. Read the rules.
The chair will respond to the points of order, not you. The point of order may not. The previous question may not interrupt a member who is actually speaking and actually has the floor. You may
continue.
continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Anyway, as I was saying, back when I was in high school, I worked at Kroger, as many young adults did growing up. When I was under 18, if you were under 18 and a transaction was coming through that involved alcohol, you had to go off the register, go find a manager. All these things are completely unnecessary. That's not good policy or good business. That's bad policy, which we are trying to fix. We have an antiquated alcohol structure in this state, which I think a lot of people want to keep antiquated laws on the books for whatever reason, because you want to take us back. But if you actually care about business and freedom and capitalism and listening to the stakeholders who actually worked on this bill, and the chairman of GovOrg did a great job. There are a lot of businesses involved in this legislation. I heard from many people back home in the Northern Panhandle who thrive on people coming into the state. That's a great thing, people actually coming in. But guess what we've learned? A lot of our old antiquated alcohol laws are keeping people from coming in. They don't want to come here. So, I mean, I don't get it, guys. Take the time to read the bill. Take the time to read the rules as well. And take the time to support businesses, support freedom, and let's pass this thing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the gentleman 29th, Douglas Steele, to close debate on the bill. The chair is in error.
Just a couple things, Mr. Speaker. Wow. Guys, this does not expand alcohol in any way that has been discussed here today. I'd really like to go back to the 16-year-olds because that is troublesome to me. Your license has to allow for a person under the age of 21 to actually work there, which would only include a grocery store. So there is no street festival with a pack of 16-year-olds selling shots. It's not happening. It is absolutely not happening in this bill. It's literally limited to your grocery stores, these people that already are allowed to have people working there under the age of 21. Okay, so moving on. We had a little bit of talk about the gentleman from the 32nd brought up hard cider. We've been trying to grow our hard cider industry in this state for years. There are people across Pocahontas, Randolph County, all the way up around the Bend, Hardy, Morgan, that are growing orchards that are some of the best in the world. And we are taxing their product in the same manner as wine. Now, what does that mean? Okay, that means by volume, hard cider is taxed the same way as wine. So if you think about this, if you bought a bottle of wine and you bought a case of hard cider, the volume of the hard cider is much larger than the volume of wine. Okay, it makes West Virginia hard cider exceedingly expensive to the point that they don't really have a market for it. So your farmers up around the Shenandoah Valley and the Eastern Panhandle are having real trouble selling their products right now. Okay, that's what that whole thing is about. The only thing we're doing is changing the tax structure of hard cider, making it smaller. Now, the other thing that's going on here with this is, folks, the things that we learned, and I believe, I don't know his number, but the gentleman back there by the gentlelady from the 35th had brought up is we're dealing with delivery here. That was the big thing that we learned in COVID. We could safely deliver. We could safely deliver alcohol. We learned that over the course of a year. We had executive orders that set that out. This keeps people off the road. And saying that 16-year-olds are going to be driving around delivering alcohol, falsehood. You have to be 21 years old to deliver the alcohol. It is written in the bill that way, and I know it's a large bill, but that is because we are taking everything that we learned from COVID and putting it in one bill. And it's all relative, it's all related to one another, so that we're having this one debate, not 37 debates on how much we hate alcohol. That's it. That's all. It was meant to help all of you out that don't like it. You only got to deal with it one time. That's it. All of it's in one bill. So, Mr. Speaker, the only thing I can say is the only thing that I would add to this title is that it makes us safer. It makes our alcohol industry in this state safer because it's keeping people off the road. It's providing better supervision, and it's providing innovation. Mr. Speaker, that's a bill, and I urge adoption. Thank you.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There are 72 ayes, 27 nays, and 1 member absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2025, provide liquor, wine, and beer licensees with some new concepts developed during the state of emergency, utilizing new technology to provide greater freedom to operate in a safe and responsible manner.
Are there further title amendments? If not, the title as amended by the House will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to... Yes, gentleman from 29th.
We do have a title amendment.
Was the gentleman's motion not that we concur in the Senate amendment and title amendment with further amendment and further title amendment?
Yes, and further title amendment.
So the House has...
I thought you said... I'm sorry.
Okay. The clerk will communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next Senate message.
The Senate has concurred in the House amendments to and the Senate amended and passed committee substitute for House Bill 2022 budget bill, making appropriations of public
Welcome
money
back to
out of
West
the
Virginia Public Broadcasting's broadcast of the final hours of the 2021 legislative session. I'm Dave Mistich, joined on set by Emily Allen. We just saw there in the House, they just passed House Bill 2025, deals with some changes to alcohol sales that businesses would make changes for them, essentially lessons learned during the pandemic, ease the way of sales. A lot to that bill, extremely long piece of legislation. Over in the Senate, they just adopted House Joint Resolution 3, dealing with property taxes, giving the legislature the ability to dip into that part of state code, which to change property taxes in code rather than it being bundled up and confined by the state constitution. Another bill that just passed recently was House Bill 2002, big broadband bill. Emily, you've been covering that all session. Recap what that bill does and why it's been so important.
Sure. Well, and I think I want to point out, I mean, it's passing on the last day, but it's not new or anything. It was one of the first bills introduced 2002, as a matter of fact.
Right.
And I think it passed the House 40 days ago. Its lead sponsor spoke to the bill tonight, and the amendments the Senate had made said it was a good bill, but that it could have been a better bill. Said some kind of fiery things that I think we played earlier about objections from broadband companies getting involved, and just kind of said he would still persist in it. There's kind of some backstory and context to this. Sure. In the Senate, when they were considering amendments to the bill, there were a couple of efforts to add funds. So that's not necessarily appropriating money, but it's kind of specific ways the money can be used, and there were 4 of them proposed, and then 3. The Senate briefly adopted those on Thursday, and then kind of recalled that motion to adopt it, so that's no longer in there. So that happened, and the lead sponsor is kind of upset about that. I will say that yesterday the Senate President, Craig Blair, said that he's willing to work on this over a special session or interims, just kind of
So this is just an incremental piece of legislation, possibly. I mean, it's a big bill, but yet there could be more on this
But people
issue.
who worked on the bill had bigger hopes for it than that, yeah.
Right. And if I remember correctly, Senator Bob Plymel of Wayne County yesterday or the day before, whenever actually it might have been Wednesday, the days obviously.
It was late over, so amendments were Tuesday, late over Wednesday, past Thursday, but he not sneaked in, but he was able to amend on third, and then they recalled his ability to amend on third.
Right.
So that killed the amendment.
But wasn't there an amendment to the budget about allocating some money to the broadband
that would have been Wednesday, and that got in, but that's just funding. It's not really strings attached. So.
Right. Well, Emily Allen, we're going to go back to, thanks so much for your reporting this session. We're going to go back to the House of Delegates, and we'll hear more. The Governor Jim Justice has just been doing a press conference with reporters, and we'll hear from June Leffler, who was over there at the governor's mansion, to hear what the governor had to say. Obviously, it's been a big couple of days with him, especially given the fact that his personal income tax reduction proposal failed in the House of Delegates yesterday. But we'll hear from June in just a few moments, but we'll go back to the House of Delegates right now for some action on the floor.
Not those in favor of adoption of the motion will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares the motion adopted. The question now before the House then is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 73 ayes, 24 noes, and 3 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2747, transferring the parole board to the Office of Administrative Hearings.
Are there further title amendments? If not, the title as amended by the Senate, concurred in by the House, will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next Senate message.
The Senate is passed with amendment and a title amendment. Committee substitute for House Bill 3106 to change the hearing requirements for misdemeanors to 10 days.
The message will be received. Lady from the 32nd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to increase the time for a bond hearing to 5 days. The Senate amendment removes the House Judiciary Committee ComSub language that was added regarding that if a magistrate does not hold the hearing, the defendant should be released on a personal recognizance bond, and the exception regarding Chapter 61, Article 2. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move the House concur in the Senate amendment.
The question is on the motion that the House concur in the Senate amendment to committee substitute for House Bill 3106. Is there debate on the motion? If the gentleman at 37th, Delegate Pushkin, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The lady yield.
Yes.
Okay. It's the major change here. They took out the requirement that if the magistrate doesn't show up in 5 days, then there's no personal recognizance?
Correct.
Well, I mean, part of the issue that we're having is that the magistrate, right now it's 72 hours, right? Under current law, okay? And originally the bill was going to extend it to 10 days. We shortened it to 5 days, but said that if they didn't show up, then they would get a PR. Well, thank you for yielding. Okay. I think they still have the requirement in there. It changes the magistrate to a magistrate. So that was the main thing that helps the problem. The problem right there is that it doesn't have to be the same magistrate. So I'll support the motion.
The gentleman from the 43rd, Delegate Nestor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a little background here. I was on the committee, the subcommittee in the House in the Judiciary, and I want to point out that the reason for this extension, it was 172 hours, and I think that our magistrates here in the state were having a hard time getting to set the hearings to put forth what would be the least restrictive alternatives to a bail to ensure that somebody who's a defendant in magistrate court on a misdemeanor wouldn't have to be in jail. So basically the backdrop is that if somebody gets arrested for a misdemeanor and they meet certain criteria that are pretty low, meaning that they're not a danger to society, there's a certain criteria they have to meet, then the magistrate has to bring them back into court and basically give them a bail under the least restrictive conditions to ensure their presence and ensure that they're not a danger to the community. That's pretty much the backdrop we're operating on. And they were obligated to do that under current law within 72 hours. That was a problem, so they wanted an extension. We came to 5 days. Now the Senate wants it to 10. I don't have a problem with the 10 days. I think the magistrate needs some discretion. But what this will do, if it doesn't have any teeth, meaning if they don't have it within 10 days, that basically nonviolent misdemeanor offenders or misdemeanor accused offenders will just spend all kinds of time incarcerated when they don't have to. Now, the reason that I bring this to your attention, I'm probably going to vote against this. Like I said, I think the 10 days is fine. But what it will do, it will keep people that don't have any business in jail, and it will adversely affect our economy. So I wanted to point that out, and I'll probably be voting against the bill for the reasons I explained. Thank you.
Is there further debate on the motion? If not, the question before the House is the gentleman of 37th, Delegate Pushkin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Gentlelady yield again, please. I'm sorry, I must have misunderstood you. Now, from what I just heard, they moved it back up to 10 days?
No.
Okay, so still 5 days? Okay.
Yes.
And while you're up, it doesn't say, did they keep the part where it says a magistrate, not the magistrate?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Like I said, that's the important part of the bill, I think, going from the magistrate to a magistrate, because the problem was the magistrate might not be working at the time, but a magistrate could be. So, once again, I support the motion.
Is there debate on the motion? Again, if not, the question before the House is the motion that the House concur in the Senate amendment and title amendment to committee substitute for House Bill 3106. Those in favor of the motion will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. Ayes have it. Chair declares the motion adopted. The question now before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there are 98 ayes, 2 noes, and 0 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3106 to change the hearing requirement for misdemeanors to 10 days.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next message from the Senate.
The Senate concurred in the House amendments with further amendment and a title amendment and passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 334, establishing license application process for needle exchange programs.
The message will be received. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to establish a license application process for harm reduction programs. The Senate amendment did 3 things. They require a written statement of support from a majority of the members of the County Commission and a majority of the members of the governing body of the municipality in which a syringe service program is to locate as part of the application process. The Senate amendment as part of the program requires would-be participants to have a West Virginia ID upon dispensing of the needles. The Senate amendment strikes a portion of the sentence in Section 7, subsection C regarding the compliance date of December 1st and replaces it with the following. Upon passage, any existing provider not offering the full array of harm reduction services as set forth in this section shall cease and desist offering all needle exchange service. Any provider offering the full array of harm reduction services shall have until January 1, 2022 to come into compliance with this section. Any new provider shall have until January 1, 2022 to come into compliance with provisions. That is repeated. The title amendment captures the above referenced changes. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move we concur in the Senate amendment and title amendment.
Okay, the question is on the motion by the lady from the 49th that the House concur in the Senate amendment and title amendment. Lady from the 4th, Doug Zukoff.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to ask to amend the lady's motion to offer a tertiary amendment through a rule suspension as we did earlier today, so that I may offer an amendment to require OFLAC, when reviewing applications for licenses, that priorities be given to faith-based programs because they offer abstinence-based recovery programs that I believe are very important.
The lady from the 4th has offered a motion for a rule suspension to permit the offering of a 3rd degree or tertiary amendment. So the question will be on the lady's motion on whether to suspend the rules to permit the offering of a 3rd degree amendment. This is a rule suspension, so it does require a 2/3 vote. The question is on the motion. Those in Okay, for the benefit of all members, so that the question is clear, The question before the House is the motion by the lady from the 4th, Doggett Zukoff, that the rules be suspended to permit the offering of the third-degree amendment just explained. Those in favor of the motion to suspend the rules and permit consideration of the amendment will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There are 31 ayes, 69 nays, and 0 members absent. Less than 2/3 in the affirmative. The chair declares that motion lost. The question is back on the motion by the lady from the 49th that the House concur in the Senate amendment and title amendment to committee substitute for Senate Bill 334. This is a debatable question. Is there debate on the motion? The gentleman from the 37th, Doggett Pushkin, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Majority Leader yield.
Yes.
Okay. Just want to figure out exactly what the how the Senate changed it. First part.
Okay, I just listed those 3 things. Do you want me to say them again?
Well, you didn't say them very loudly, and I didn't really get the gist of all of it. But in part of it, the first thing you mentioned.
I can restate them.
Okay. Well, look, can I ask the questions, please? The first thing that you said was I thought was in the amendment we put in the House, about that it would require, in order to, before they apply for the license, if one of these groups was going to apply for a license, they would first have to go get the majority of their county commission and the majority of the governing by the city council and the municipality to sign a letter.
A letter of support. The word support was left off. The amendment just said they had to send a letter. There was clarification on what that letter was.
Okay, that's why I was confused, because I thought that was something that we did over here, but so that they added the word support. Yes. It has to be a letter of support, so not just a letter. Okay, and it says and, so they have to go to the county commission and city council.
Yes.
Okay. Now the other thing it mentioned that they would have to get identification. What's the exact language on that identification?
It is not specified. It really can probably be just about anything.
What's the language it says?
West Virginia identification.
Okay, thank you.
It's not a photo ID.
Now, does it add further services that they would have to offer as far as harm reduction than what we sent out of here?
No, I don't see that.
Okay, then what was the rest of the changes, then, if you don't mind?
Then the third thing was, upon passage, any existing provider not fully offering the array of harm reduction services as set forth in this section shall cease and desist offering all needle exchange services.
Okay, it says, okay. What are those services? So this basically just puts
the services were in the original bill that we discussed in health.
What's listed in the original bill, if they don't provide all those, this just puts more
This is just saying if you don't provide all the harm reduction services as set forth in the bill as we discussed in health, then you're going to have to stop operating.
Okay. Well, I think I understand their amendment, and I'll speak to it in a minute, but not right now. Thank you very much. Thank you for yielding.
The gentleman from the 45th, Doggett Martin, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Great googly moogly, I move the previous question.
The gentleman from the 45th has moved the previous question on the motion. The question is, shall the previous question be ordered? Those in favor of the previous question being ordered will say aye. Aye. Those opposed will say no. The chair is uncertain. Those in favor of ordering the previous question will raise one hand. Okay, lower the hands. Those opposed to the previous question will raise one hand. Okay, lower the hands. There is a majority voting in favor of the previous question. The previous question has been ordered Under the rules, the ordering the previous question does entitle the member sponsoring the proposal under consideration an opportunity to close debate. If the question is on the motion that the House concur, does the lady from the 49th wish to close debate on the motion? If not, then debate has been closed. For what purpose does the gentleman from the 37th seek recognition?
I ask unanimous consent to address the House.
Okay, objection is heard.
I move. This is an issue that's affecting my district. My district's right in the crosshairs of it, and I ask unanimous consent to address the House.
Gentleman from 28th, Delegate Pack, for what purpose does the gentleman seek recognition?
Point of inquiry, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman may state the inquiry.
The question before the House currently is the amendment, or is the motion to concur, so the gentleman would have an opportunity to speak to the bill. Is that correct? If this motion were adopted?
If the motion is adopted, the question will be on the bill. The gentleman is correct.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Lady, for what purpose does Lady from 51st, Delegate Fleischhauer, seek recognition? Okay, the House has ordered the previous question on the motion. Those in favor of the motion that the House concur in the Senate amendment and title amendment to committee substitute for Senate Bill 334 will say aye. Aye. Those opposed will say no. No. The ayes appear to have it. Okay, the ayes have it. The chair declares the motion adopted. The question now is on the bill. The question is, shall the bill pass? This is a debatable question. Is there debate on the bill? The gentleman from the 37th is recognized.
Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the ability to, the chance to get to speak on this bill, even though it really pains me greatly to speak on this bill. It's not a pleasant subject. And as this bill left this body, when we voted on this bill and sent it back over to the Senate, I said I would reluctantly support the bill because I wanted to be part of the conversation going forward, because this is an issue that it's been a major controversy in the district that I represent because harm reduction was politicized in our last mayoral race, and it was moved out of a licensed health provider. It was moved out of our health department, and since then we're right in the middle of an epidemic here in Charleston of HIV. But I said I wanted to be part of the conversation going forward. And I guess I was part of a conversation going forward, but I wasn't really part of the conversation, because the conversation was between a few members of this body and the lead sponsor of the bill over in the Senate. And that's where the conversation happened, and that's where the orders were given. And I think that the bill that we had coming out of judiciary was what I was trying to seek, and that was a compromise bill, one that would actually work, where it wouldn't completely shut down these programs, but it would provide accountability with these programs. Because what's important is that we listen to the science, listen to the health experts, but just as important, listen to the community. And the bill that we had was a good compromise. Unfortunately, the amendment that was offered in here really was the most harmful part of the bill, the amendment offered by my friend from the 32nd, because let's really think about it. To apply for the license, they would have to have local politicians, county commissioners, your city council, half of them, more than half of them, a majority, sign a letter of support. So if they want to avoid the controversy, like so many of y'all do, like my friend that called the previous question and stymied debate, if they want to avoid controversy like most of you, all they have to do is not sign a letter. Under current law, what they would do is pass an ordinance. They would have to address the issue and pass the ordinance. Right now, there are some of you who represent areas where they are forbidden. They can't have this type of program because your county commission or your city council has passed an ordinance. But now they don't have to do anything. They just refuse to sign the letter. And that's where the problem is going to be. And in thinking about what I was going to say here, I looked up as Scott County, Indiana. Anybody heard of Scott County, Indiana? And Scott County, the one town in Scott County, Indiana, through IV drug use, they had, in 1 year, they had 235 cases reported of HIV. The town that I'm talking about, I think it was called Austin, Indiana. It was a town of a little over 4,000 people with 235 cases of HIV. I'm sorry if this doesn't interest some of you, but in 3 years, if you pass this bill, it's going to be of great interest to this state, I guarantee you. I'm going to try to keep my emotions out of this because I think this is where we've gotten into trouble with this issue, is we have an emotional knee-jerk reaction to it instead of listening to the actual science. But I'm telling you a real story here that happened in a small town in Indiana, 235 cases in a town of 4,000. How many of you represent towns of 4,000? Little more, little less. 235 cases in your little town. But you know what? I don't have to talk about Indiana because unfortunately right now I can talk about Charleston, West Virginia. And because it was politicized in an election, 3 years later, we had one less new case than New York City. And I said this before, let this sink in, not per capita, not percentage-wise, one less case in Charleston, West Virginia than New York City of HIV last year. So that should concern some of us, because with the amendment that my friend from the 32nd offered, they're not going to be granting licenses because local politicians aren't going to be signing letters of support. They're simply not going to put their names on the paper. Instead of taking politics out of this, instead of listening to the science and listening to the community and allowing local control on this, instead of doing that, we inserted politics right into it, and it's going to make it very difficult for any of these programs to exist. Maybe that's what you want, but if they don't, I'm telling you, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years from now, future legislatures, you might be here, you might not be, but we'll be addressing it. It will be addressed. Just like former Vice President Mike Pence, who was the former governor of Indiana, had to go back and address what happened in Scott County, Indiana. He had to go back. That bleeding heart liberal, Mike Pence, had to go back and start these programs in Indiana to address the HIV outbreak there. So to me, it's, you know, if you think about how much it costs to treat one case, somebody who's underinsured or on Medicaid, one case of HIV, think about how much it costs to treat one case. They had 235 cases in this town of 4,000. Okay? Think about how much it costs. This state paid $50-some million to address endocarditis last year through Medicaid. That's how it is right now. So we will be coming back to address this. It will cost the state lots of money, but for me, more importantly, is the human toll that this is going to take. Because to me, it's not just about those people. To me, it's about us, not just us in this room, us as West Virginians, because I don't see that as those people who use drugs. I told you earlier I don't drink. There's a good reason why I don't. All right? There's a good reason why I ran for office, and there's a good reason why I speak up whenever we're talking about criminal justice reform, and when we're talking about prison reform, and when we're talking about our drug laws. And it's not because my background was in law enforcement or counseling. It's because I'm an addict. But by the grace of God, I'm in long-term recovery, and we do recover, and we find a way out of it, and I'm living proof of it, and I've got a life experience that says this is the wrong way to go. We are going to have real problems if we pass this bill. So I would implore you to really think about what this right here has long-term implications. And it's being pushed on us by one senator who stood up in front of a committee and lied for an hour, and nobody even got to question him. And he's got this bill that's just based on fear and trying to stir up things based on politics, not based on science. And some of you are taking direct orders from him. Because like I said, I wasn't part of the conversation. I was part of a conversation, not the conversation.
The lady's raised a point of order. The lady will state the point.
I believe that there are rules of civility on the floor of this House, and I would ask the Speaker to enforce those rules.
The rules do prescribe the attribution of any motive to any member of the House. So the chair will ask all members to refrain from ascribing motive to any member of the House for any purpose of the remaining debate we have this evening.
All right, I was speaking about a member of the Senate. He didn't tell the truth. I was in the room. Some of you should have sat in the room and listened to him. I'm just going to end with this, all right? The people who are affected by this, you might see them as less than human, all right? But we're all going to be paying for it in the long run. And what I see when I see these people, what I think when I see these people is, but for the grace of God, there go I. Vote against this.
The lady from the 51st Lake of Fleshour is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have to agree with my colleague from the 37th that this is bad public policy. And he said there, but for the grace of God, go I. And we have had an opioid crisis in this state. And that crisis led directly to a crisis where people are injecting illegal drugs. One happened and the other followed. And we have family members, we have relatives, we have neighbors who got hooked on OxyContin from dental surgery, from coal mining accidents, and we were a pawn in a very big game of a pharmaceutical company that was making a lot of money off of people that they thought didn't know any better. And it was horrible what happened in our state. And when you have this large problem of people using injectable illegal drugs, is they need health care. And the health care that is prescribed by the CDC. Our former president, President Trump, his CDC said you should have clean needle exchanges.
The House will please be in order. The lady from the 51st has the floor. Please take extraneous conversations off the floor. The lady has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The gentleman was talking about following the science, and I was explaining that the CDC has a set of procedures that they recommend, and that this new law will be in contravention of those recommended scientific procedures. These procedures are to save lives. These people are related to us. These people are our neighbors, and they were preyed upon by several very large pharmaceutical companies. And what we're doing with these changes to the bill are going to make it harder for them to get into recovery. It's going to be more likely that they get serious infections, such as hepatitis B, such as hepatitis C, such as HIV, such as endocarditis. People are in the hospital for months and years who are afflicted with that. And of course, we all know HIV is something that people have for a lifetime. All of those illnesses can be deadly. And so because we have this idea that needle exchanges are bad and wrong, we are throwing these people away, our neighbors, our family members. It's really important, and the gentleman from the 37th is right. What happened in Indiana is history. Vice President Pence was opposed to needle exchanges, and that state did not allow clean needle exchanges, which is what the science recommends. And that county also had an opioid crisis, and it also resulted in illegal injectable drug use. And all these people, it was a massive HIV, and HIV infection doesn't just affect the people who are addicts, it spreads to others. It's a horrible, horrible illness and affliction. I don't want that to happen in this state. We do need to pay a little attention to history. That happened in Indiana. It is likely to happen here. We have 2 of the 4 largest outbreaks of HIV in the country right now. And if we had a decent clean needle exchange program following CDC guidance, we could turn that around. We have programs like that in our state that are very successful, where we have, in my county, we have a very successful program. I don't know whether they're going to be able to meet all these requirements, but we've had a very tiny number of HIV cases in our county and our region. And I'm really proud of that. And I'm proud of the people that go out and say, do you need health care? We can arrange health care for you. Do you need Narcan? We can get that for you. These are really good people. Some of them are motivated by religion. Some of them are motivated by their concern about public health. And this is really, we are going to regret this. There are going to be people that are going to die. And they're going to be friends of ours, neighbors of ours that didn't need to die because we needed to give them a chance to recover. They are not going, there's a good needle exchange program opens the door to recovery, and we are going to be shutting that door. I urge rejection of this legislation.
Is there additional debate on the bill? If not, the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed to passage of the bill will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There are 67 ayes, 32 nays, and 1 member absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 334, establishing licensed application process for needle exchange programs.
Are there further title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next Senate message.
The Senate concurred in the House amendment with further amendment and the title amendment and passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 470, limiting release of certain personal information maintained by state agencies.
The message will be received. Lady from the 32nd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill establishes that disclosure of certain personal information of state officers, employees, retirees, or legal dependents by state executive, legislative, or judicial branch agencies to non-governmental entities is an unreasonable invasion of privacy and provides that such information is confidential and exempt from disclosure under FOIA. The amendment removes the language added in the House Judiciary of public defenders, assistant public defenders, and panel attorneys and replaces it with federal and state public defenders and is additionally code cleanup. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move the House concur in the Senate amendment.
The question before the House then is the motion that the House concur in the Senate amendment on committee substitute for Senate Bill 470. Is there debate on the motion? The lady from the 51st Docket Fleshour is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You went a little too quickly for me. I know you're trying to go quickly, but what exactly does the Senate amendment do? And what does it have to do with public defenders?
It simply changes the language from specifying public defenders, assistant public defenders, and panel attorneys and replaces it with federal and state public defenders.
That's it?
And
that's all it
it's code
does?
cleanup. That's it.
And then otherwise it's the same as the House bill?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
The question again is on the motion that the House concur in the Senate amendment and title amendment to committee substitute for Senate Bill 470. The gentleman from the 29th, Douglas Steele, is recognized.
Gentlelady yield.
Yes.
To be clear, it now says federal and state public defenders.
Yes.
And prior to that, it said panel attorneys.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, there's a vast difference between a public defender. That's an employee of a public defender corporation, whether that be the Federal Public Defender Corporation or the various state public defender corporations around the state. Now, the other folks that are in there from the House version was panel attorneys. Panel attorneys are private attorneys that are forced by the judges of this state to take cases that they don't want to take and are forced to work at a quarter of the price that we...
Welcome back to West Virginia Public Broadcasting's final hours broadcast of the 2021 legislative session. I'm Dave Mistich, joined on set by June Leffler. We'll hear in just a moment about the governor's press conference held over at the governor's mansion earlier this evening. But we'll take a moment, June, to talk a little bit about Senate Bill 334, which we just heard some debate from in the House. You've been following that bill all session. You've been following the issue of needle exchanges for some time here in Charleston and some of the issues surrounding HIV outbreaks. Tell us a little bit about that bill and the course of its journey here this session, if you would.
Absolutely. So this started in the Senate, obviously. Eric Tarr is the one that really pushed this. And it's been going through a lot of amendments. When the House got it, they completely rewrote it, but really it looked pretty similar, not in exact language, but in context. So, this is just a controversy that is really apparent in Kanawha County right now. It's also apparent throughout the state, but here in Kanawha County, the CDC has said that we've got the worst HIV outbreak in the nation. We have other counties in the state that have some of the worst HIV outbreaks in the nation. And in Kanawha County, we're kind of unique in that we have 2 syringe service programs that operate here, for better or worse in some people's minds, in the community's minds, but our health department does not. And so I think when we do look at, if this bill is to pass, it is going to go back to, it was just in the House, so it's going to go back to the Senate. But, the question will be, are these programs going to get shut down?
Right.
Our health departments are doing most of these, your health departments that are giving you vaccines, that are watching out for, the public's
all
interests.
Sorts of public health issues, right?
Yeah, exactly. So they have your best interests in mind, and they're used to going through hoops. So, we might think that those people will be able to go through these same hoops, but smaller providers might not.
Right. And we'll be following that bill. Of course, it's been wildly controversial all session. We've heard a lot about this issue. We'll sort of step back from a moment from that and talk a little bit about the governor's press conference. He gathered media over at the mansion earlier this evening. You were there along with a few other reporters. I venture to guess that the topic of conversation was the personal income tax reduction and its failure yesterday on day 59 in the House of Delegates on that 0 to 100 vote. So tell us a little bit about the governor's reaction to that and other things he said.
Thank you, Dave. So, yes, when he talked about the personal income tax, he did say that he thought the House was grandstanding, to make that unanimous vote. So he attributes politics to that, and he worries about, outside interests, coal interests, the soda interests. But other than that, he really took a step back and said, I need to do more work if I want this to actually happen.
Right.
And so that would be going on the road show. He says he wants to go on a road show immediately. He's not interested in convening and having session return.
For a special session, we should say.
Yeah, he's not interested in having a special session come back unless he thinks that personal income tax is going to go through. And he feels like he needs to do the work before that happens.
Right, and we should say that this bill was on a very strange trajectory from the start. This is an issue that got brought up by Senate leadership, President Craig Blair. Before session even started, the governor had touted this idea before session started. Basically, over the course of this session, we saw a plan from the governor on, about halfway, roughly through the session, we saw a plan come from the House that whenever they took up the governor's bill, very different than the governor's plan, and then a third plan in the Senate. And then we saw this personal income tax reduction summit where the governor gathered lawmakers from both the House and Senate and from both parties. And then the Senate came up with essentially another plan. So it's hard to keep track, 4 or 5, something of that, the various iterations of this bill. And like we said, this is something that did not make it across the finish line in 60 days, but it seems like the governor is really committed. What else did we hear from him in terms of, coming up with a plan? Was there any specifics about, the differences of these plans? What he, is sort of a live or die principle that we found in there, just an element of this bill that he has to have that's essential for its survival for him to take it back up. Did we hear anything from him about that?
I don't think so. He likes to say that he's willing to compromise, and he's saying right now that he's willing to put in the work to get his message across. So he did not speak to, this is what has to be done, this is what I can budge on. His message now is, I have to educate my people. I have to get them on my side.
Right. And he said that would happen immediately, I presume?
He said that would happen immediately. Yes.
Wow. Well, June Leffler, thanks so much for your reporting. Thanks for heading over there to the governor's mansion earlier and for all your reporting this session. We'll go now to the state Senate floor where lawmakers are back in session.
The definition of party headquarters committee to include county executive committee headquarters. The bill extends authority to a county executive committee to establish party headquarters and for solicitation and receipt of contributions for the purpose of funding the county executive committee headquarters. And so it allows money to be raised for that, and it applies to it the same cap that exists for contributions and expenditures for the purpose of the erection or establishment of a county party executive committee headquarters. Mr. President, I'll be happy to answer any questions if I may. Otherwise, I urge the passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill passed. Clerk has the title amendment.
Senator Trump moved to amend the title of the bill.
Question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Joint Resolution 1, Education Accountability Amendment.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the resolution be referred to the Committee on Rules.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Senate will be at ease. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to return to the second order of business.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President and the Senate. There are two runners that we have been privileged with tonight that has helped the Senate out, getting these back and forth. We have with us tonight George Hess, if you wouldn't mind standing, and Teresa Rucker, and let the Senate give you a warm welcome and a thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I also have another thank you to many, many people in this room, but I think I'd like to leave it up to the chairs to call and introduce their staffs and just to say how much they are appreciated. So any chairman that would want to congratulate your staff, please feel free to stand up and do so.
Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the great honor of being blessed with a staff that you're very familiar with from your tenure in as finance chair. They're here in the back of the room, starting over here with Ben Axton, Kay Hill, Corey Bonasso, Jeff Johnson, Krista Witt, and Tammy Shamblin. Sorry, I almost got it really, really fast. I usually try to go right through that. Worst thing for, as far as politicians go, I'm terrible with names, but I'm great with faces. Even my own family gets that sometimes, and I consider them family. They have been excellent.
As the Senate thanks staff for the work this session, we'll go back now to the House of Delegates where they're taking up business. Right now they are tackling House Bill 2370, and that is to provide that public service districts cannot charge sewer rates for filling a swimming pool.
If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 96 ayes, 0 nays, and 4 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2370, provide that public service districts cannot charge sewer rates for filling a swimming pool.
Is there further title amendment? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker,
30 seconds.
I move the bill be made effective from passage.
The lady from the 32nd moves that the bill be made effective from passage. Those in favor of the motion will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 97 ayes, 0 nays, and 3 members absent. 2/3 of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill effective from passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next Senate message.
The Senate has passed without amendment but changed the effective date on House Bill 2500, create an act for statewide uniformity for auxiliary container regulations.
The message will be received.
The Senate has
Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the bill take effect from passage.
The question is on the motion that House Bill 2500 be made effective from passage. Those in favor of the motion will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 90 ayes, 8 noes, and 2 members absent. 2/3 of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill effective from passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next Senate message.
The Senate has passed with amendment and a title amendment. Committee substitute for House Bill 2671 relating to financial exploitation of elderly persons, protected persons, or incapacitated adults.
The message will be received. Lady from the 32nd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to update and coordinate the financial exploitation statute with applicable rules and other related statutes. The bill clarifies proceedings regarding civil complaints and petitions for financial exploitation protective orders. It includes potential criminal penalties for violation of the provisions of a financial exploitation protective order, requires notices of fines and penalties in all injunctive or protective orders, and makes technical changes. The Senate amendment adopts the House version with updates for code citation protocol and improves drafting format. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move the House concur with the Senate amendment.
The question before the House is the motion now that the House concur in the Senate amendment and title amendment on committee substitute for House Bill 2671. Is there debate on the motion? If not, then those in favor of adoption of the motion will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares the motion adopted. The question now before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 99 ayes, 0 nays, and 1 member absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute House Bill 2671 relating to financial exploitation of elderly persons, protected persons, or incapacitated adults.
Are there further title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next Senate message.
The Senate has passed with amendment and a title amendment. Committee substitute for House Bill 2694, create the Second Amendment Preservation Act.
The message will be received. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to create the Second Amendment Preservation Act. The Senate amendment rewrites the bill after receiving input from a number of interested parties. The amendment changes the title of the bill to the West Virginia Second Amendment Preservation and Anti-Federal Commandeering Act. It also rewrites the legislative findings and intent. It provides a number of definitions, including commandeering, federal commandeering, inconsistent federal firearms law, regulation or rule, inconsistent presidential firearms executive order action, inconsistent with the law of West Virginia, new inconsistent federal firearms law, new inconsistent presidential firearms executive order or action, and red flag law. Section 5 of the amendment provides that West Virginia law enforcement are prohibited from enforcing federal firearm laws in several circumstances. Section 6 prohibits West Virginia courts from depriving citizens of West Virginia from their firearms under any red flag law. Section 7 provides a number of permitted activities for West Virginia law enforcement, such as serving on a joint task force, so long as the primary purpose of the joint law enforcement task force is something other than the enforcement of inconsistent federal firearm laws, or the enforcement or investigative duties are primarily related to the violations of state or federal law unrelated to enforcement of inconsistent federal firearm laws. Section 8 provides that the Attorney General, upon determining that a federal statute, presidential executive order, agency order, federal law, rule, or regulation infringes on the Second Amendment, must challenge such federal action. Section 9 requires the Attorney General to publish model policies for West Virginia law enforcement, providing guidance on resistance to federal commandeering and lawful measures which can be taken by the law enforcement agencies. And finally, Section 10 provides no heads of West Virginia law enforcement agencies nor its officers may enforce a federal statute, executive order, agency order, rule, or regulation determined by the Attorney General to infringe upon the rights granted by the Second Amendment. It also provides civil and criminal immunity for law enforcement heads and officers for refusing to enforce such laws. It also provides that if such law enforcement agency head or officer is prosecuted civilly or criminally for refusing to enforce such federal laws or regulations, then they are entitled to reasonable attorney fees. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move we concur in the Senate amendment with further title amendment.
The question before the House is the motion that the House concur in the Senate amendment with further title amendment on committee substitute for House Bill 2694. Is there debate on the motion? If not, those in favor of adoption of the motion will please say aye. Aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares the motion adopted. Question now before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor, yes, the gentleman of the 6th, Delegate Kelly, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentlelady yield?
I'll try my best.
You're going to do fine, I'm sure. You indicated when you were reading the changes that some stakeholders had been involved in this. Do you happen to know who they were?
I cannot tell you that. I'm reading this script. I apologize.
That's okay. Thank you very much.
It was done in the Senate.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Again, is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On the question, there were 92 ayes, 7 nays, and 1 member absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill effective from passage. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2694, create the Second Amendment Preservation Act.
Are there further amendments to the title? If not, the title as amended by the House will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next Senate message.
The Senate passed with amendment and a title amendment. Committee substitute for House Bill 2891, creating minimum statutory standards for law enforcement officers.
The message will be received. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to create a series of new minimum requirements for persons requiring to serve in law enforcement. The Senate amended the bill to better delineate the state of the law enforcement officer who has not yet completed training by adding a definition of pre-certified law enforcement officer and added language preserving existing rules made by the Law Enforcement Professional Standards Subcommittee. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move we concur in the Senate amendment and Senate title amendment.
The question is on the motion that the House concur in the Senate amendment and title amendment on committee substitute for House Bill 2891. Is there debate on the motion? If not, those in favor of the motion will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares the motion adopted. The question now then before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On the question, there were 95 ayes, 4 nays, and 1 member absent. The majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2891, creating minimum statutory standards for law enforcement officers.
Are there further title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next Senate message.
The Senate passed with amendment and a title amendment. Committee substitute for House Bill 2982 relating to the Second Chances at Life Act of 2021.
The message will be received. Lady from the 32nd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to create information about the process of chemical abortion to be provided to a woman prior to prescribing pharmaceuticals for or administering a chemical abortion. The Senate amendment changes the definition of medical emergency, removing a requirement to determine gestational age. With respect to medical judgment, the bill clarifies that it is the patient's physician's medical judgment at issue in determining the medical emergency. The bill removes a requirement for the DHHR to list providers trained in the use of abortion pill counteraction protocol and to update this list annually. The statement provided to the patient is modified to reflect that if the patient decides to try to counteract the intended effects of the chemical abortion, they should consult with their physician. It also added liability protection for a physician acting in conformity with the informed consent provision of this bill or a physician prescribing a non-FDA approved drug to counteract a chemical abortion. These amendments do not frustrate the intent of the bill, and therefore, Mr. Speaker, we move to concur in the Senate amendment and Senate title amendment.
The question before the House is the motion that the House concur in the Senate amendment and title amendment on committee substitute for House Bill 2982. Is there debate on the motion? The lady from the 51st, Doggett Fleshauer, is recognized.
Thank you. Will the lady yield?
Yes.
We've spoken about this bill before, both in the Health Committee and on the floor. And one of the things that concerns me is that this procedure that is that there's a requirement now that women be told about. Is there any requirement in the Senate version that women be informed of the potential serious side effects to their health?
Their language does provide for cautionary language that there could be serious side effects.
Can you read that?
At the consult of the physician.
Can you read that? Because
I don't have the text in front of me. I just have the Senate message.
It says that they could have hemorrhaging. I think all it says is they should consult with a doctor. It doesn't say anything about it doesn't advise of the the likelihood of side effects or the possibility of side
I think
effects.
it just allows it just gives the physician leadway to talk about the side effects in general.
I'm not seeing that in what I'm looking at.
Again, I don't have the bill in front of me, but that is, according to the amendment, according to the Senate message, that is the language that's expressed.
Okay. Thank you.
The gentleman with 51st, Doug Hanson, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also have a question, if the gentlelady would yield.
Yes.
I think you said something about liability protection, and I wanted to get clear on what that was liability protection from. Is that provided to the physician?
Yeah, it says it also added liability protection for a physician.
And for the physician doing what?
Acting in conformity with the informed consent provision of this bill.
Okay. And that is for prescribing a non-FDA approved drug, right? So
that
we're
is
providing
correct. That's exactly it. Mhm.
liability protection for prescribing a non-FDA approved drug. Do you know of other situations where liability protection is provided to physicians for prescribing a non-FDA approved drug?
I do not.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The question again is on the motion that the House concur in the Senate amendment and title amendment. Is there debate on the motion? Lady in the 51st, a second recognition.
Thank you. I have a second question. Was that new language, was the language about liability added or retained? Because the summary I have says it was retained. And I don't recall that being in our version.
According to the information I have, the Senate amendment added liability protection for a physician.
Okay, thank you. I would like to speak to the bill. I think that this is government gone. This is government intervention into a personal decision that women have the right to make. We're mandating speech by physicians, and we're mandating speech about a procedure that could cause them to risk their lives. We're saying, take this procedure, even though it isn't FDA approved, and also, if anything happens to you, you don't have the right to sue the physician who's recommending this FDA non-approved procedure. It just is very strange that our government would be doing this. It's insulting to women that we aren't capable of making decisions on our own with consultation with a doctor.
If not, those in favor of adoption of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares the motion adopted. The question then before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On the question, there were 84 ayes, 15 noes, and 1 member absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee Substitute House Bill 2982 relating to the Second Chances at Life Act of 2021.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next Senate message.
The Senate passed with amendment and a title amendment House Bill 2997, adding a defense to the civil penalty imposed for a result of delivery of fuel to a state other than the destination state printed on the shipping document for fuel.
The message will be received. Lady from the 32nd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to require a shipping document for the transportation of motor fuel and removes the documentation requirement for motor fuel loaded at a bulk plant rack. For motor fuel is delivered to a destination state other than what is printed on the shipping document, current code requires the person transporting the motor fuel to notify the tax commissioner and to receive a confirmation number from the commissioner authorizing the diversion. The Senate amendment substitutes the commissioner's designated entity in both instances and provides a defense to civil penalties related to missing, false, or incomplete shipping documents. If the person notified the commissioner's designated entity of the diversion received a confirmation number and the tax was timely paid on the diverted motor fuel. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move the House concur with the Senate amendment.
The question is on the motion that the House concur in the Senate amendment and title amendment to House Bill 2997. Is there debate on the motion? If not, those in favor of adoption of the motion will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares that motion adopted. The question now before the House then is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 96 ayes, 2 noes, and 2 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 2997, adding a defense to the civil penalty imposed for a result of delivery of fuel to a state other than the destination state printed on the shipping document for fuel.
Are there further title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Lady from the 32nd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the bill be made effective from passage.
The lady from the 32nd moves that House Bill 2997 be made effective from passage. Those in favor of the motion will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 95 ayes, 2 noes, and 3 members absent. 2/3 of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill effective from passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next Senate message.
The Senate rejected the House amendments and requests the House to receive therefrom on committee substitute for Senate Bill 485 relating to use or presentation of firearm during commission of felony.
The message will be received.
The Senate rejected.
Lady from the 32nd. The question is on Senate Bill 485.
Mr. Speaker, we don't currently have that message in our possession.
Very good. We'll move that to the foot of messages today from the Senate. Let's move to consideration of committee substitute for Senate Bill 636.
The Senate rejected the House amendments and requests the House to receive therefrom on committee substitute for Senate Bill 636, requiring certain history and civic courses be taught in schools.
That message will be received. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill adds specific curriculum content and objectives for required instruction in history and civics. The House amended the bill to include contributions of historic minorities and required a 1-credit course in personal finance as a requirement for graduation. The Senate refused to concur with the House amendment and asked the House to recede. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move we recede from the House amendment.
The question is on the motion that the House recede from its position with respect to committee substitute for Senate Bill 636. The question is on that motion. Is there debate on the motion? The gentleman from the 67th, Delegate Doyle, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There is, of course, not time for a conference committee, but there is time for the Senate to come to its senses. I suggest very strongly that we reject the lady's motion.
We'll return now to the West Virginia Senate, where the body has returned to business.
Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 27 yeas, 6 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill passed. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective May 10, 2021, and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Senior Senator from the 17th moves the bill be made effective May the 10th, 2021, and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on the passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, 27 yeas, 6 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than 2/3 of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill effective May 10th, 2021. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Okay. Are there further House messages?
The House amended and passed. The House amended the Senate amendments and passed. House Bill 2694, create the Second Amendment Preservation Act.
Yeah. Message will be received. Senior Senator from 17.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move we concur with the House amendments to House Bill 2694.
Senior Senator from the 17th moves that the Senate concur on the House amendment to Senate amendment to the House Bill 2694. Is there discussion? Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. They were technical only. I urge passage.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question for the Senate concur in the House amendments to the Senate amendments on House Bill 2694. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the motion adopted. Question now is on passage of the bill as amended. All those will vote yea. In favor, vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 30 yeas, 4 nays, 0 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
We return now to the House of Delegates, where lawmakers are debating Senate Bill 636, requiring certain history and civics courses be taught in schools.
On the disparate treatment in our schools as well. And we worked hard to try to get some of those bills up in education, but they weren't taken up. So again, we have compromised to try to put some language in a bill. And when we first did it, it got knocked down, got pulled off, if I do remember correctly. And then again, in a bipartisan fashion, with this gentleman right here, worked hard to get it back, revive it, and get agreed upon language in the piece of legislation. That's democracy. It's what we all want. Why are we doing this right now at this hour? Think about the message that you're sending. All to not want to educate everyone. It's like, you know, at some point you got to look in the mirror. Just got to look in the mirror. And while it might seem small, it does a lot. So, you know what we need to do. We need to hold our position, and that's firm.
The gentleman of 43rd, Doug Thompson, is recognized again.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I thought we had a pretty good product with this bill that we had worked out in Education Committee. Both sides. We did a good job. We put in some good stuff, you know, to make sure we're teaching about women, Native Americans, African Americans, their contributions to society. It's great. Because also, don't forget, you guys also had in there Hillsdale College. Now, out of the thousands of colleges across this country, colleges and universities, why is Hillsdale College in this bill? I thought it was a compromise. Hillsdale College is very far right wing, very conservative in their viewpoints of how we teach and instruct civics education. But we put that in there. But we're going to strip out and make sure we don't include the contributions of women, Native Americans, and African Americans. So if you're okay with that, well, that's up to you. But I urge rejection. I urge we do not. Thank you.
The question again is on the motion that the House recede from its position with respect to committee substitute for Senate Bill 636. Is there additional debate on the motion? If not, those in favor of the motion will please say aye. Roll call is demanded. Is the demand sustained? Demand is sustained. The question is on the motion that the House recede from its position on committee substitute for Senate Bill 636. Those in favor of the motion will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? The clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there are 58 ayes, 37 noes, and 5 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that motion adopted. The question now before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, yes, the lady from the 4th, Doug Zukoff, is recognized on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to pass this bill, but not the way it's written. Some of the things that I've learned in the last year because of what's been happening in our country as a student of AP American History in high school and several American history classes during college, I wasn't aware of Katherine Johnson. Nobody ever taught me about her. I didn't know we had a Black Wall Street. I'd never heard of the Tulsa Massacre or the Green Book or John Lewis. I didn't know about any of those things, and I asked my kids, who are a lot younger than me. They'd never been taught about any of that either. And when we came down here, I spoke to the gentleman from education, and I brought some language that I'd researched and asked to be put in the bill about these very types of issues. And I was told, absolutely, this is going to be a bipartisan bill. We want to work with you. And so I gave that language. And a lot of that was taken out, but it did talk about the history that I've just spoken about. And now we're going to recede. We've already agreed that we're going to recede. We need to vote this bill down. We're better than this, West Virginia. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The question again is on the bill. Lady from the 51st, Walker, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, thank you to the gentleman of the 16th for speaking so eloquently, as I may not. And I'm not going to apologize for that. I am a woman. And I am black. I've been a minority all my life. Good, bad, and indifferent. And I'm still standing, and I'm still smiling, and I'm still loving, and I'm still crying. Every day, I'm up at 5 a.m. to Zoom with my son because I am his homeschool teacher. It is not even safe for me to be in this building alone, let alone bring my child who has been with me for the past 2 years. In committee, when we discussed this bill and this amendment came up, I had my colleagues sit across from me and say, why would you not put specific names in there? My question is, why would you ask me, being a black woman? Why do we have to put specific names all the time? Why did you have to learn about Katherine Johnson on the big screen when she was right here from our mountain state? Why did my colleagues have to learn about the Green Book? Because I do a story time on Facebook. My history is my yesterday, my today, and my tomorrow. I stand before you as the only black woman in both houses. You may not want to hear what I have to say, but these are my truths. This is my lived experience. And for you to ask one educator, do you not teach this? Why are we not asking all of the educators, are they not teaching this? Why don't you go a little bit further? My sons learned about the Golden Horseshoe. We studied for that thing. It was the first year we moved to Wild and Wonderful, West Virginia. I never seen Katherine Johnson's name. What names would you have liked to see? Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but not Malcolm X? What names would you have liked to see? Rosa Parks, but not Harriet Tubman? What names would you have liked to see? The late John Lewis, but not Maxine Waters? Ask yourself. There's many minorities. It's not just African Americans. It's Native Americans. It's women. I wonder if we would have opposed this if it was last year for the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. I don't think it's performative activism. I just think it's performative government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The question before the House is the passage of the bill. Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? The clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 64 ayes, 33 nays, and 3 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill Committee substitute for Senate Bill 636, requiring certain history and civics courses be taught in schools.
Are there further title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next
You're watching
message.
West Virginia Public Broadcasting in the final hours of the 2021 legislative session. It's now 11 o'clock, meaning there's 1 hour left in the session, and we'll go back and stick right here to the action in the House of Delegates.
Of churches or religious denominations amendment.
The message will be received. Lady from the 32nd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to allow churches and other religious bodies to incorporate if desired. The Senate refused to accept the House amendment to change the antiquated and confusing phrase denomination to institution. While disappointing, that this is not worth losing a needed piece of constitutional reform. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move we recede from House amendments.
The question before the House is the lady's motion that the House recede from its position on Senate Joint Resolution 4. Is there debate on the motion? The gentleman from the 32nd, delegate from the 37th, Delegate Pushkin is recognized.
Thank you. I know earlier I said we have a lot in common, but I'm 37. The lady yield for a question.
Yes.
You said that so quickly. I just want to be clear. What they refused to concur with was changing the word denomination to institution, correct?
Yes.
Is there a difference between a denomination and an institution?
Their argument is that a denomination is like a sect, and so it would, and so it would include, other religious entities as well.
Okay. Well, is the intent to have, like, congregations to be able to incorporate, or entire denominations?
Congregations specifically.
Okay. Well, thank you for yielding. I'm going to briefly speak to it. It's fairly confusing because it says churches and denominations. So it could be interpreted that certain congregations, if they aren't a church, wouldn't be able to incorporate. So, for example, the synagogue I belong to is not a church, and we're not a denomination. It's an institution. So this isn't going to be on the ballot, I believe, until the general election of 2022. Is that correct? So I would say we refuse to concur and stick with our original position so we could be inclusive and allow folks other than churches to incorporate.
The gentleman from the 46th, Delegate Burkhammer, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentlelady yield?
Sure.
Yeah, there was a date issue in the election that I believe we put in. So if we move away from that, does it go back to the original date of the election?
General election 2022.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yep, thank you.
Is there further debate on the motion? Lady from 51st Douglas Fletcher is recognized.
Yes, question of the lady from Fayette.
Yes.
So I think I'm in favor of this, but can you explain exactly what we're changing in the Constitution, what the current language is, and what the problem with that language is? And what part of the Constitution
Right now,
it's in?
churches in West Virginia are not allowed to incorporate, and I think it's only like us and Virginia are the only places that don't allow churches to incorporate.
Is it in
and
a
Virginia
corporation?
has been ruled illegal, and so we're trying to make sure that churches have the option if they choose, and this is going to put it on the ballot for the voters to decide whether or not congregations will have the ability to incorporate.
So are we, and I haven't had a chance to study this, not being on judiciary, are we taking out language of our current Constitution?
No, we're just simply permitting that they can incorporate.
So it was by judicial decision that they weren't allowed to incorporate?
No, it's been in the Constitution.
Okay, so we're changing language in the Constitution.
The voters would change the language in the Constitution.
Well, this is a proposal to do that.
Yes.
And what the gentleman was saying about, so the Senate said denomination?
The Senate had denomination. The Senate originally had denomination. We changed it to institution, and the Senate said, no, we want denomination, so now it's back to denomination.
And will we allow religious organizations that are not denominations to incorporate?
We should. We currently allow them to create trusteeships, as with any other religious entity. So I don't think it excludes any religious entity.
Okay, thank you.
Question again is on the motion that the House recede from its position with respect to Senate Joint Resolution 4. Is there additional debate on the motion? If not, those in favor of adoption of the motion will please say aye. Aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares the motion adopted. The question now is on adoption of the resolution. Is there debate on the resolution? If not, the question is, shall the resolution be adopted? Those in favor of adoption will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there were 95 ayes, 4 nays, and 1 member absent, 2/3 of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the resolution adopted. The clerk will please report the title.
Senate Joint Resolution 4, Incorporation of Churches or Religious Denominations Amendment.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Do we have further Senate messages?
485. No, okay. Here.
Let's proceed to consideration of committee substitute for House Bill 2195 on Senate messages.
The Senate passed with amendment and a title amendment committee substitute for House Bill 2195 relating to motor vehicle crash reports.
The message will be received. Lady from the 32nd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill requires that law enforcement officer within 48 hours of a motor vehicle crash to make available the owner, operator, and insurance information for all the involved parties with all the other involved parties and or their insurance. The Senate amendment causes within 24 hours of a motor vehicle crash, the investigating law enforcement officer shall provide the owner, operator, and insurance information upon request. The amendment simply reverts the time back to 24 hours as opposed to 48 hours. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move we concur in the Senate amendment.
The question before the House is the motion by the lady from the 32nd that the House concur in the Senate amendment and title amendment to committee substitute for House Bill 2195. Is there debate on the motion? If not, those in favor of adoption of the motion will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares the motion adopted. The question now before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the motion? Or is there debate on the bill? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Lady from the 51st, Douglas Walker, your vote's not registered. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There are 99 ayes, 0 nays, and 1 member absent. Majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2195 relating to motor vehicle crash reports.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next Senate message.
The Senate passed with a title amendment. Committee substitute for House Bill 2688 allow county political parties to have building funds in a similar manner that state parties are allowed.
The message will be received. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All the Senate did was amend the title. Mr. Speaker, I move the House concur with the title amendment.
The question before the House is the motion by the lady from the 49th that the House concur in the Senate title amendment to committee substitute for House Bill 2688. Those in favor of the motion will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares the motion adopted. The question now before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There are 98 ayes, 1 nay, and 1 member absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2688 allow county political parties to have building funds in a similar manner that state parties are allowed.
Are there further title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next Senate message.
The Senate passed with amendment and a title amendment House Bill 3107 declaring the post-traumatic stress disorder diagnosed by a licensed psychiatrist is a compensatable occupational disease for first responders.
The message will be received. Lady from the 32nd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to create an opportunity for first responders to obtain coverage for service-induced PTSD. The Senate amended the bill to define an employer consistent with West Virginia law relating to an employer relationship. Additionally, there is a 5-year sunset provision. While the latter provision is not ideal, this does give us time to ascertain the feasibility of the program. The bill is not compromised by these changes. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move we concur in the Senate amendment and title amendment.
The question before the House is the lady's motion that the House concur in the Senate amendment and title amendment to House Bill 3107. Is there debate on the motion? If not, those in favor of adoption of the motion will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares the motion adopted. The question now before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There are 97 ayes, 1 nay, and 2 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 3107, declaring that post-traumatic stress disorder diagnosed by a licensed psychiatrist is a compensatable occupational disease for first responders.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Lady from the 32nd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the bill be made effective from passage.
The lady from the 32nd moves that the bill be made effective from passage. Those in favor of that motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there are 97 ayes, 0 nays, and 3 members absent. 2/3 of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill effective from passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next Senate message.
The Senate passed with amendment and a title amendment House Bill 2776, creating the Air Ambulance Patient Protection Act.
The message will be received. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill creates the Air Ambulance Patient Protection Act to provide consumer protections for members of air ambulance service providers. The bill provides that an air ambulance membership agreement or subscription is insurance and may be considered secondary insurance coverage or a supplement to any insurance coverage. The bill mandates that those services be licensed and regulated by the Office of the Insurance Commissioner to the extent that the services promise to reimburse or indemnify costs of a member's air ambulance transport to a third party, including the requirement that anyone selling or soliciting air ambulance membership agreements or subscriptions must be licensed by the Commission. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move we concur with the Senate amendment.
The question before the House is the lady's motion that the House concur with the Senate amendment and title amendment on House Bill 2776. Is there debate on the motion? The gentleman with 32nd Douglas Fast is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I need to ask for a Rule 49 ruling in that I have a membership with one of the companies that's in play in this matter.
Yes, sir. Under the set of facts relayed to the chair by the gentleman earlier this week, it would be the ruling of the chair. The gentleman does belong to a class of 5 or greater individuals and therefore would be directed to vote on the bill. Lady from the 41st, Delegate Tully is recognized.
Rule 49 for the same reasons as the delegate from the 32nd.
Same set of facts?
Yes, sir.
Would be the same ruling of the chair. The lady would be directed to vote as a member of a class of 5 or greater or similarly situated individuals. The question again is on the motion by the lady from the 49th that the House concur in the Senate amendment and title amendment to House Bill 2776. Is there debate? If not, those in favor of the motion will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. Chair declares that motion adopted. The question now before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? The gentleman from the 53rd, Delegate Jennings, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The reason I rise, this is an anti-competition bill. As you can see by HealthNet giving each one of you one of their papers explaining what this is about. Do you know what it costs to launch HealthNet? It costs $22,000. That's when they take off from the pad. And then it's $240 per mile for a loaded mile. That's what it's what it costs. Now, you may think see, some people feel they need to pay their bills. This is stating, well, we don't charge you, we just bill you, but we don't come after your money. But up home, they did come after the money from some of my constituents, and I feel that we should allow this to go through, or not allow this to go through. And so we have some competition. As you've heard, we've had delegates in here that have had the other company, and it was quite reasonable. And this is just a way we can have a little bit of competition. I know you're going to hear all kinds of other stories here why we need to do this. It isn't fair, and it's, it should be regulated. But I feel that we ought to vote this bill down. Thank you.
The gentleman from the 12th, Douglas Westfall, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speak to the bill.
Gentleman is recognized.
Yes. This doesn't stop competition. This, all it does is allow the Insurance Commission to regulate these. Currently, you got some companies selling these to people who do not need them, senior citizens. They set outside stores. They sell them to people who got Medicaid, Medicare. That Medicaid, Medicare will pay it. So for those reasons, I urge passage.
The gentleman from the 32nd, Douglas Fast, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would rise against this bill. Obviously, as I stated, I do have a membership in a company called Air Evac, and this is a large company that is in competition with HealthNet, and I truly feel that we were deceived in Judiciary Committee. There was one company that showed up in Judiciary Committee when we debated this bill, and I asked questions about the membership and was given every impression that the company that was before us had memberships. Comes to find out it was HealthNet, and they don't have memberships. HealthNet is the company that is pushing this legislation right here. They were the ones that showed up in full support of this bill. Right here, I'm holding in my case a decision that was rendered while we were in session this year. It was signed by Judge Irene Berger, Southern District Federal Court in West Virginia on March 1, 2021. She has issued, and the issue in this case was it's Air Evac versus James Dodrell, the West Virginia Insurance Commissioner. And she has already, there's a standing order issuing a temporary restraining order against the insurance commissioner, holding that, in her opinion, there is a high likelihood that when this case is completely over, that these membership agreements will not be deemed insurance. That's right here in this case, in this court order. And I've been told, okay, that's going to be appealed to this order is going to be appealed to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals in Richmond, Virginia. Well, there's already another case where the Fourth Circuit, and it's mentioned in this order, the Fourth Circuit has already ruled that these memberships are not insurance. Here's the way it works. I pay about $85 and it covers my entire family. I understand that if I'm unconscious and I have to be air-vac'd, I don't have any control on saying who to send to pick me up. If I'm conscious, I can tell them who to pick me up. But this company here that I have membership with, they have a network, relationships with other companies, and they're called sister companies, all over the United States. It's not just in West Virginia. They have relationships with companies all over the United States, and there are agreements. Let's say if I'm in the state of Virginia or Washington, D.C. or Maryland, then one of the sister companies could evac me, and my membership would still apply in that situation. There's an 8th Circuit Court of Appeals that has also ruled that this is not insurance. So while we're sitting here in legislation, this litigation is going on, and this bill is nothing but an opportunity to try to get around, do an inroad around current litigation, and I think we were totally deceived. I even asked questions, what would the membership be if this bill passed, if it was deemed insurance? And they gave an answer. Well, we're not exactly sure, but it shouldn't be any more or not much more if this was considered an insurance policy. And again, I thought we were talking to a company that had memberships, and they didn't. And so I think this is deceptive, and I would strongly urge the members to vote this down. And here's the thing: if you have a good idea, why in the world do we have to regulate everything? It works. If it's not broke, don't fix it. I would ask rejection.
The gentleman from the 50th, Delegate Garcia, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the talk about deceptive practices, that is exactly what this bill is supposed to remedy. I really appreciate the work that's been done from the gentleman from the 12th. I think all this bill does is say that these types of that this is insurance. And that's absolutely the case. And we've heard examples of where somebody may have The gentleman, I think, just raised up a court case. Since when do we really care what the courts have to say when we make legislation? I think we can't pick and choose. We cannot pick and choose. And so when we're talking here about what is the consumer protection, what is the consumer protection? It's that there are some people who buy these programs, and they come to find out they already have it. It's already covered under their insurance. So they're paying double. They're getting sold a bill of goods, and that is what this is supposed to remedy. Not to mention the problems that we've seen with balanced billing. And that's not covered by this, but that just goes to show this that there is a need right here for the legislature to step in and protect consumers in the state of West Virginia. So again, I appreciate your work. Chairman of Banking and Insurance, and we should definitely support this bill. Thank you.
The gentleman from the 36, Delegate Pritt, is recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Motion to call the question.
The gentleman from the 36th has moved the previous question on the bill. Those in favor of ordering the previous question on the bill will please say aye. Aye. Those opposed will please say no. Okay, the ayes appear to have it. Roll call vote is demanded. Is the demand sustained? The demand is sustained. The question is on ordering the previous question on the bill. Those in favor of the motion to order the previous question on the bill will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there are 65 ayes, 33 nays, and 2 members absent. Majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the previous question adopted. Does the sponsor of the bill wish to close debate on the bill? If not, then the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there are 69 ayes, 29 nays, and 2 members absent or not voting. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 2776, creating the Air Ambulance Patient Protection Act.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Let's turn now to consideration of committee substitute for House Bill 2933.
The Senate has passed with amendment and a title amendment committee substitute for House Bill 2933, Anti-Discrimination Against Israel Act.
The message will be received. Lady from the 32nd, Delegate Kessinger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to prevent the state of West Virginia and its political subdivisions from doing business with companies who have endorsed the planks of the BDS movement. The Senate amended the bill to remove House provisions which also applied the terms of the bill to the Investment Management Board. While the latter provision is definitely not ideal, this can be re-examined in the future. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move that we concur in the Senate amendment and Senate title amendment.
The lady from the 32nd moves that the House concur in the Senate amendment and title amendment on committee substitute for House Bill 2933. This is a debatable question. Is there debate on the motion? The gentleman from the 37th, Delegate Pushkin, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The lady yield.
Yes.
So the part that they pulled out, it doesn't apply to the retirement investment?
They exempted the Investment Management Board.
Okay, so then what does the restriction? Who do the restrictions apply to?
Any state, the state and its political subdivisions, all of those except for the Investment Management Board, which is incredibly disappointing. However, I will try again next year.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said it's incredibly disappointing. However, I will try again next year.
Well, thank you for yielding. I'll tell you what else was incredibly disappointing. Watching everybody vote to accept an amendment that excluded synagogues from incorporating but allowed churches to. But let's not discriminate. as long as they're living over there and not here.
The gentleman from the 16th, Doug Mant, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just want to call for the previous question. Thank you.
There are no other members seeking recognition at this time. Does the gentleman continue forward with the motion? All right, then the question is, questions on the motion to order the previous question on the bill. Those in favor of ordering the previous question on the bill will please say aye. A roll call is demanded. Is the demand sustained? The demand is sustained. The question is on ordering the previous question on committee substitute for House Bill 2933. Those in favor of the motion to order the previous question on the bill will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There are 51 ayes, 47 nays, and 2 members absent. A majority of members present and voting having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the previous question adopted. The question now is, the previous question has been ordered on the motion to concur. Therefore, the lady from the 32nd is entitled to close debate pursuant to the rule. Does the lady wish to close debate? If not, then the vote is on the motion to concur. Those in favor of the motion to concur with the Senate amendment and title amendment on committee substitute for House Bill 2933 will please say aye. Aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares the motion adopted. The question then is on shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There are 97 ayes, 1 nay, and 2 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2933, Anti-Discrimination Against Israel Act.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Let's turn now to consideration of committee substitute for Senate Bill 660.
The Senate has rejected the House amendments and requests the House to receive therefrom.
For what purpose does Lady from the 32nd seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that House Bill 2933 be made effective July 1st, 2022.
The lady from the 32nd moves that committee substitute for House Bill 2933 be made effective July 1st, 2022. The question is on that motion. Those in favor of adoption of the motion will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Gentlemen, has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There are 97 ayes, 2 nays, and 1 member absent. 2/3 of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill effective July 1st, 2022. The clerk will please communicate that action of the House to the Senate. Let's again proceed to consideration now of committee substitute for Senate Bill 660.
The Senate has rejected the House amendments to and requests the House to receive therefrom on committee substitute for Senate Bill 660, providing for cooperation between law enforcement agencies and military authorities.
The message will be received. Lady from the 32nd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to provide that the military may ask for cooperation in certain instances. The Senate requested the House recede from its amendments to the bill, which incorporated the Judiciary Committee amendments and added 2 new sections to the bill with additional limitations on military law enforcement cooperation. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move the House recede from the House amendment and House title amendment.
The lady's motion is that the House recede from its position with respect to the amendment and title amendment on committee substitute for Senate Bill 660. Is there debate on the motion? The gentleman from the 37th, Doug Pushkett, is recognized.
The lady yield. So they took out the 2 House amendments. Well, the House amendment was made over here.
Yes.
Okay, so the amendment that made this a gun bill is no longer in there?
That's what it appears, yes.
Okay, now this is a bill about that would protect members of our military by allowing local law enforcement to investigate, say if there's a sexual assault among members of the military. That's what the bill does now?
Yes.
So it's not a gun bill?
This bill, they're asking us to recede from the House amendment, and I would hope that you would be willing to recede from the House amendment and do what the Senate has asked us to do to get the bill across the aisle.
Thank you.
The question again is on the motion that the House recede from its position with respect to the amendments and title amendment to committee substitute for Senate Bill 660. Is there debate? If not, those in favor of adoption of the motion will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. A roll call vote is demanded. Is the demand sustained? Demand is sustained. The question is on the motion that the House recede from its position on committee substitute for Senate Bill 660. Those in favor of the motion will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there are 93 ayes, 7 nays, and 0 members absent. Majority of members voting in the affirmative, the chair declares the motion adopted. The question now before the House is the passage of the bill. Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of committee substitute for Senate Bill 660 will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there are 97 ayes, 3 nays, and 0 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 660, providing for cooperation between law enforcement agencies and military authorities.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Let's proceed now to consideration of House Bill 2363.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 2363 relating to the best interest of the child.
Let's have the clerk report the bill first.
The Senate has refused to concur and requests the House to recede on committee substitute for House Bill 2363 relating to best interests of the Child Protection Act of 2021.
The message will be received. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All we need to do is pass a title amendment. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move we pass a title amendment.
We've got just over 20 minutes left in the 2021 legislative session. You're watching a lull in the House of Delegates, I should say. Lawmakers milling about the chamber. We're also waiting on the Senate to come back into session. Again, you're watching West Virginia Public Broadcasting's 2021 coverage of the legislative session, the final hours. And we'll peek in here at the House floor. And when the Senate comes back, we'll see the action over there.
House will be in order. Has the clerk reported the message on committee substitute for House Bill 2363? Clerk will please report the message.
The Senate has refused to concur and requests the House to recede on committee substitute for House Bill 2363 relating to best interests of the Child Protection Act of 2021.
The message will be received. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the House refuse to recede from our amendments.
The motion by the lady from the 49th is that the House refuse to recede from its position on committee substitute for House Bill 2363. Is there debate on the motion? Lady from the 51st, Douglas Fleshauer.
Thank you. Will the lady yield?
Yes.
So I'm kind of confused. What is the issue with the title amendment? Or
The
is
bill
there-
needs a title amendment, so we are going to do that in addition to receding from our position.
You mean our bill, our version of the bill needs a title amendment?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to...
He says...
So the recommendation is we stick with the House version, and after we do that, we're going to fix the title so that it conforms to the House version?
Do you want to... Senate amended it. The Senate amended the title.
Well, I thought the Senate amendment was different from
Would the
House.
gentleman from the 15th like to address that?
Gentleman of the 15th is recognized to yield for the question.
The bill would be the Senate as amended coming from the Senate. We just need to do a title amendment so that the bill works, because the title is incorrect.
Their title's incorrect?
Yes, the title is incorrect. Whether it's ours or theirs, it's incorrect, but it's their amendment. The amendment as passed the Senate.
So if we're refusing to recede, what difference does it make that their title is incorrect?
We need a proper title for the bill to pass.
But I thought we don't want that bill to pass.
No, we do. That's why we're talking about it
No,
right
that
now.
we don't want the Senate bill to pass, right? Or you don't want the Senate bill to pass?
No, I do. That's what we're waiting on right now, but
Well, then why are we asking them to recede?
we're asking them to recede so we can do a title amendment.
And are we going, so which version will happen?
I'm done yielding.
I'm sorry, I find this confusing.
The question is on the motion that the House refuse to recede from its position. The gentleman from the 30th, Doug Bates, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm also unclear as to what we're doing here. I'm quite happy to do something. I just need to know what we're doing before we do it. So would the gentleman yield, or somebody yield, to explain procedurally what's happening here?
Chair will field that question.
Thank you, sir.
The procedural posture before the House is the motion that the House refuse to recede from its position on committee substitute for House Bill 2363. It is the intention of the lady from the 49th that if that motion is adopted, that she will offer a title amendment to correct the title deficiency in the bill, send it back to the Senate, and ask that the Senate concur in the title amendment to be offered next.
So the title amendment that will be offered will
corrects the work of the Senate.
We'll confirm it. We'll line it up with what the Senate did.
Gentleman's correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from the 36th, Doug Rowe, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm really confused. This is a fairly substantial piece of legislation. Can you explain the differences between what the Senate did and what we did, so that we have some idea about whether we should support the motion to recede?
I did that an hour and a half ago when we passed the bill over there.
Well, I'm sitting here and I'm working as hard as I can. I don't remember what the differences were. Would you be kind enough to tell me again? Is the 50-50 presumption in the Senate bill or in our bill? Either bill.
It's in neither.
All right. And if someone wants to move out of West Virginia or out of their current location, then
that is back in the bill.
Okay, and that's the Senate has that in the bill.
Yes.
All right. And are any of the established orders granting custody to either of the parties, are they going to be reopened as a result of this?
No.
bill? And is it the Senate's version that says that as opposed to our version?
Yes.
And so I think the bill, but I don't remember which version, says that in fact that it's not a change of circumstance for the child as a result of the passage of this legislation. Is that right? Or no?
I don't understand what you're asking.
Well, there's a provision in one of the bills, and I think it's really hard to figure out on the system, whether we're looking at the original bill, the amended bill.
Do you just want to vote no?
I'm sorry?
Do you just want to vote no?
Well, I'd like to be informed about
that's what I said. We did this bill an hour and a half ago, and we went over all of those things.
Right, and at the time I read it, but I'm still having some trouble trying to figure out.
I don't know if you'll be able to get it then.
All right. And so if we vote in favor of the motion...
The chair hears a point of order from some delegate. Gentleman from the 55th, Doug Ward, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm new to this, but this appears to be a clear stall tactic. We've got 12 minutes left. Thank you.
If the lady wishes to yield to the gentleman, that's up to her. The gentleman has the floor if the lady wishes to continue to yield or not, at her choosing.
Well, as I understand it, and I'll address the chair for this, as I understand it, the posture is that we have a motion refusing to recede.
We do.
To send it back to the Senate and with what's going to be a title amendment, so that if the Senate accepts the bill, then the title amendment that we propose will correct the bill so that it can be passed.
Gentleman's correct.
So that's the posture that we're in at this time.
Gentleman is correct.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, very much.
The gentleman number 28, Douglas Pack.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the question.
Gentleman number 28, Douglas Pack, has moved the previous question be ordered on the motion to recede from our to refuse to recede from our position. Roll call is demanded. Roll call is sustained. Those in favor of the motion to order the previous question will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There are 72 ayes, 24 nays, and 4 members absent. Majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the previous question ordered on the motion that the House refuse to recede. Those in favor of the motion that the House refuse to recede from its position will please say aye.
Aye.
The roll call vote is demanded. Is the demand sustained? Demand is sustained. The question is on the motion that the House refuse to recede from its position. On committee substitute for House Bill 2363, those in favor of the motion will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 91 ayes, 8 nays, and 1 member absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the motion adopted. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move a title amendment.
Lady from the 49th moves that the title of committee substitute for House Bill 2363 be amended. The question is on the title amendment. The gentleman from 55th Docket Ward, for what purpose does the gentleman seek recognition? For what purpose does the gentleman seek recognition? Okay, the gentleman from 36th Docket Row.
One question. Is the title amendment to our version of the bill or the Senate's version of the bill?
It's to the bill.
What, the version that we're receding from or not? Which bill? Mr. Speaker, there's a title amendment being proposed.
There is.
Does it correct our version of the bill or the Senate's version?
It corrects our version of the bill. We've asked the Senate to recede.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
For what purpose does the gentleman 29th Douglas Steele seek recognition?
You move the previous question.
Question is on the gentleman from the 29th has moved the previous question on the title amendment. Roll call vote on the previous question is demanded. Is the demand sustained? The demand is sustained. The question is, shall the previous question be ordered on the title amendment? Those in favor of the ordering the previous question will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There are 79 ayes, 20 nays, and 1 member absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the previous question ordered. The question now is on the adoption of the title amendment. Those in favor of adoption of the title amendment will please say aye. Aye. Those opposed will please say no. Ayes appear to have it. Ayes have it. Chair declares the title amendment adopted. The title as amended by the House will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Let's move to consideration of House Bill 3089.
The Senate has passed with amendment and a title amendment House Bill 3089, make utility workers the essential employees during a state of emergency.
The message will be received. Lady from Chair is advised that the Senate message on House Bill 3089 is available in the system. Lady in 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to make utility workers essential employees during emergencies such as a pandemic or...
It's now 11:55. We've got about 5 minutes until both chamber gavels out sine die for the 2021 legislative session. The Senate looks like they've got a little bit of work ahead of them. We'll go back to that chamber now and take a peek in.
The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. The Senate will be at ease.
The House refused to recede from its amendments and amended the title only as it relates to committee substitute for House Bill 2363.
Message be received, Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate concur in the House amendment to the Senate amendment.
Senior Senator from the 17th moves that the Senate concur in the House amendments to the Senate amendments to House Bill 2363. Is there discussion? Senator from Brooke.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the previous question.
Question before the Senate is that the Senate concur in the House amendments to the Senate amendments on House Bill 2363. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the motion adopted. The question now is on passage of the bill as amended. All those will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. It's okay.
I thought we were supposed to vote on whether or not we were moving the question. Am I missing something?
As long as nobody objects, we're good.
Yeah, but we don't know what we just did to 2360. There was a provision.
No, they receded from that part and just did a title amendment.
Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If not, the clerk will close the machine. On this question, 29 yeas, 2 nays, 3 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Senator from the 17th for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate adjourn sine die.
Question is on adjourn sine die. All those. Withdraw unit.
Is now a question unanimous consent to withdraw my former motion? President, I request unanimous consent to move a resolution from the floor.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Senate Resolution 49 by Senator Takubo, raising a committee to notify the House of Delegates the Senate is ready to adjourn. Sine die.
Senior Senator from 17.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate unanimous consent that the Senate recess. Take it up for immediate consideration. Committee reference be dispensed with and resolution placed upon its adoption.
All those in favor? Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. The questions on adoption of the resolution. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. Three members, Senator from Brock, Senator from Tucker, and Senator from Greenbrier. Notify the House.
Senior Senator from 17.
Senior Senator from 17.
Another resolution from the floor.
Lawmakers in the Senate now are preparing to adjourn sine die to complete work in the 2021 legislative session. Over in the House of Delegates, the same is about to take place as well. And there you have it. You've been watching West Virginia Public Broadcasting's live coverage of the 2021 legislative session, the final hour's broadcast. For more of a wrap-up on this session, join us Monday morning at 7:44 for West Virginia Morning on radio. And for everyone here at West Virginia Public Broadcasting, staff and crew, thanks for joining us, and have a good night.
Support for the legislature today is provided by Marshall University, with more than 100 degree programs offered in 4 locations and online. More about the Marshall family at marshall.edu.
West Virginia University, a land-grant, space-grant, R1 research institution. Learn more at wvu.edu.
Segra, providing fiber-based communication solutions. Segra, freedom to grow. More information at segra.com.